Welcome everybody. This is CBSI presents Tales from the Flipside 31. Obviously, you can tell I got my voice back. You know, come on, brother. Can't keep me down. I'm not gonna job out to anybody.
Dino's struggling. Struggle bus.
Struggle bus for sure, dude. Um, I'm Dino. Boys, I thought we were gonna have like the NWO when they all had like 35 people on the team, but we had like a regular NWO. We only got 4 people today. So, boys, introduce yourselves.
Yeah, P-Dub's here. Happy Monday night.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, from the high desert in the great American Southwest, this is Brian McClay coming with some G.I. Joe info tonight.
And knowing is half the battle.
That is true.
Scotty Too Hottie coming in from Philly, and I am tired of Red Goblin. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I am tired of hearing about it.
I sold one.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I honestly haven't bought any of them, and I can't wait for it to be over.
The unsellable book that I sold one of with no voice, so I felt bad.
You didn't need a voice to sell.
I know, it was terrible.
He was grunting at people.
Yeah, dude. People were trying to fucking knock me down on our price. I wouldn't even say anything. They're like $20. I'm like, no. I just shake my head no.
Was it one of the graded ones?
Yeah, it was a 9.8, $7.95.
You sold it to Vaith.
No, I didn't sell it to Vaith. Everybody thinks I sold it to Vaith. I didn't sell it to Vaith. I sold it to that Asian kid. Tall Asian kid. You remember the kid who like walked by a Bruce?
Is he the one that bought the Lethal Protector 9.0?
Yeah. I sold that fucker from him too. He's like, I'll take this, man. I'm like, all right, brother. Yeah, he comes by a booth every year. He's a cool kid. I can't. You know, he always looking for cool shit. So, and he always spends like $300 with us. So, good times. You know, our regulars were there, so it was good times.
Yeah, that's snowballing into a nightmare right there.
What's that?
Red Goblin.
You want to talk about him? Want to start off right off the bat? Let's hit it up, boys.
Yeah, I mean, even with the store variants aside, it's crazy.
Well, if it's true what they say, and you know, with Jimmy's spec of the year, and it all ends here in a couple issues, it's going to make a lot of people feel really stupid, making such a big deal over nothing.
It's probably, everyone keeps talking about the bubble bursting. It's probably just a lot of small bubbles like this. People get in, they think it's awesome. They're trying to ride on the tails of Thanos and try and make history repeat itself so quickly with Red Goblin, and maybe they'll get burned. I don't know.
Now, I got a question for Scotty, because Scotty's a Spider-Man guy. He's a guru. Have you read all the Spider-Mans even, or have you stopped?
I stopped reading them a long time ago. Maybe at least a year and a half ago. I mean, it was pretty terrible.
Yeah. I thought you might. It might have sparked your interest. You might have grabbed a copy and flipped through.
That's what I'm saying, man. Like, I'm completely unexcited about all of it.
Yeah.
So is that because of Dan Slott killing half the audience, or?
No, I mean, I'm just honestly, I could care less. Like, give me something new. Like Red Goblin isn't new. It's just mashups have been happening for how long?
I kind of wonder how like that Marvel retreat went, and when somebody said, we should just pull a Voltron of all of our evil characters and see how far we can take it and how many books we can sell.
Yeah,
and then when it caught on with the Cosmic Ghost Rider, they just went, all right, let's do it.
Yeah, I mean that's the problem with Marvel is like once something works, they're like, "Ooh, let's do it 10 more times," and it's just like, come on, fellas, just be happy with the one time.
Yeah, it's a nightmare. But also with all the speculators, I understand speculating is what we do, and we're the Flipside podcast, so it's part of the podcast. But all these people complaining, getting so angry over the way Marvel is dealing with this and how they're screwing all the speculators, and it makes me really wonder how if Marvel's just laughing and being like, we don't care about the speculators. We care about selling books.
Yeah, I mean that's the newsreel is Marvel does not care about speculators. They don't care about the secondary market. They care about how many books they ship, and that's it.
Yeah, and then rightfully so. They should, right?
And if people are pissed, honestly, they need to stop buying. That's really the only thing they can do. Like once Marvel starts losing sales, then they'll change their tune. But I mean, why would they stop doing it if people keep buying?
And I mean, that's the other problem. Everybody says that every year. So it's the same thing like video game wise. It's like EA Sports, like, or EA in general. Like, if you guys want to do this, you need to stop buying. But there's, what, 5% of people are going to stop buying Madden? You know what I'm saying? Or something, Star Wars. It's like they're still going to pre-order. They're still going to.
You get 15-20%. That puts a dent in their bottom line.
Yeah, no, I definitely understand that, but
I mean, that's one of the main reasons. Like, I'm tired of Marvel. What did they say? Like 4 months ago, no more reboots, no more major events, and what do we have at number ones coming up very soon?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that brings up another question: are they rebooting, or are they just doing like a soft reboot?
Who knows, man? I mean,
you can't reboot of a reboot, man. It's terrible.
Yeah, it's like the fifth time in the last 10 years.
You never want to go full retard.
Yeah.
Never want to go full retard. And Marvel has been going full retard for a couple of years, but I mean, I guess the sales are there, so they don't really care.
Yeah. I mean, hey, if you're printing money, right? Who cares, right? I mean, that's what Marvel's thinking.
I mean, especially with I think Sean alluded to this, the fact that like, they're making their money off these store variants because I mean, they pretty much have the inside of the book already done. They just need to slap a new cover on it and
like you said, and like you said, I mean, my mom worked at a print shop back in the day, and once you just run out a couple 100,000 pages of interiors, and like you said, run a couple special runs on the covers, and you're done. Yeah. Staple the book, and you're good to go. So
yeah, sad.
I mean, whatever.
People got to make their money, though. I tell you what, I mean, there's a lot of grumbling.
Yeah. I mean, people will learn. I mean,
well, like you said, I think everybody's salty. They don't want to miss the Walking Dead one, but I mean, how many books I talk about this all the time. How many books each year come out that actually blow up?
Not many.
What, 4 maybe? 4?
Yeah.
1 a quarter? I was
gonna say 5.
Thanos 13. I mean, it's tough.
I mean, you have to like basically go hard on almost every book just to hit the pure winners, but with the amount of books you have to buy, you're gonna lose no matter what.
Yeah,
even if that.
It's like playing a casino, dude. It's like, yeah, you might hit on the blackjack table once, but in the long term, you're gonna. I mean,
it's tough. I mean,
yeah.
I think it was. Oh God, I'm gonna sound like a real fool if I say the wrong name, but I think it was Scott Whitman that wrote an article about flipping, the Wednesday Warrior and flipping and how much money you're really making off of eBay with all the percentage. And man, just reading that article really, really made me think, long and hard about whether it's worth even thinking about Wednesday Warring.
I'll tell you, Wednesday Warring, what, like 4 years ago, Scotty, when we got in 4 or 5 years ago, when not everybody and their mother was in on it still, you could make some decent change. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
I couldn't find anything over here.
Well, I mean, I couldn't either, but I'm saying some people made some big bank, but I don't know. It's tough, man. I mean, I think I mean, with the success of the movies and everything else and everybody getting back into kind of comics, it's like from a money standpoint, not even from a collectability standpoint, from a money standpoint, it's like it's harder and harder. It's going to be harder and harder and harder to find. It's not even just old keys now. It's going to be like new moderns that like, I mean, like Ben we were talking to Ben in a different hangout, and he was like, IDW, these rare IDW variants or these rare things that nobody buys because nobody cares about. It's like, are they ghosts or just nobody cares about them? And it's like, you got to go to the indies to like find something that's credible,
Yeah, well, I mean, and that's where it comes down to buy what you like.
Yeah.
At this point, like, don't chase.
That's where I'm at.
I chase Golden Age, dude. I mean, pre-cool horror, gold. That's what I've been chasing lately. I mean, I did well in the plastic, man. I mean, it just
see, but I think that's the difference. Buy what you buy.
Yeah.
Buying what you like. Like me, I'm buying what I like for myself. But I guess that the fine line is buying what you like that if you don't flip it, if you're into flipping, then it's not a bad thing because it's a cool book anyway.
Yeah, and I mean, for my own personal thing, I don't have a PC. Everybody knows this. I don't have a PC. I don't, you know, if you give me the right price, I'll sell anything, dude. I mean, but it's like I always look for the deals. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm not gonna go overspend on a book, but I like Plastic Man. I got it for a good price, theoretically. I mean, it was a big purchase. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, I'm gonna flip it. I'm gonna do well on it. But it's like, you know, like you said, I mean. It's a book you don't see too often, and it's like, you know, and it's a cool cover book too. I mean, if it holds around, I gotta hold on to it for another year until the next. Well, we won't go to Indy, but the next show we do, I mean, I'm not really worried about it. I mean, if not, I'll just throw it on eBay and.
Well, is Plastic Man getting any kind of uptick from the recent stories in metal and the news of him being on that new team?
I don't know. I
don't think there's a lot of sales.
There was just one sale recently. It was a 5.5. It went for $15.50.
Well,
yeah, it's not bad.
And then I guess I got a 5.0 and from Onsite from C2E2, which is but I mean I didn't pay too hard where I'm gonna lose my ass, but it's like, and then there was a 6.0 qualified that went for like $1,500. So I mean I'm gonna do well theoretically, but I mean
theoretically,
yeah. So
was that a treasure hunting find? You know, pull that out of the long box, or was that a wall book?
That was a wall con book.
Nice.
I mean, and I worked him a little bit. I mean, I didn't get it as cheap as he got it, but I got it for pretty. I mean, I got it probably for a market raw. I mean, but I mean, it's one of those books you're never gonna see. I mean, that's what I went for. I mean, I go for books you're never gonna see. I mean, or
that cover's killer too. That's a killer cover.
Yeah, it's a killer cover. And the cool thing about mine is I got the date stamp on mine. Like it says,
I love date stamps.
And it's like clear, legible. It's not smudged, dude.
So what's the story with those date stamps? Is that when they used to bind them all together, and then that when they drop them off, they would stamp the first comic on the top of the bind?
I think usually it was the store that would stamp them.
Yeah, the store would stamp them.
It's like the arrival date for the store, so they knew when to like shuffle out the stock and the inventory.
Right.
It's like, you know what I'm talking about, like when they, you know, drop off, you know, like 50 of the same copy, and they're all kind of bound together, and the top book is kind of stamped as like, all right, this is when they were dropped off type thing.
No, I'm pretty sure it was the stores would do it individually.
Would they stamp all the books they got, or just the top one?
I think they would stamp them all.
Wow.
Well, but I don't think all stores would do that.
Not all stores did it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know some libraries did it where they would stamp like you know, whatever library was at, so people didn't steal them type deal.
Yeah, I think you found it in like in odd stores, like hardware stores and stuff like that, like those type of places.
Well, and the cool thing is I got the date stamp on mine from the 40s, obviously, but I mean, just the history of that book, right? So it's the 40s, right? So obviously, you know what happened, right? World War II kind of just ended, right? I mean, so I mean, the thing survived a world war, you know what I'm saying? And the aftermath of that, and it's still, I mean, it's still in good condition theoretically for being a 5. I mean, for being what 70 years old, we'll call it, Scotty.
Yeah,
I mean,
theoretically, it's in great shape.
Yeah, I mean, that's unheard of. I mean, that's what I like about the comic game. It's like just hearing stories like that of books that are so old like that, and they just make it somehow through all the, you know, some guys' collections or a bunch of dudes who, you know, it's like a lot of things could have happened. I mean, like Action Comics #1, like you see all this crazy stuff. Like, I mean, yeah, I mean, that's a rare book and you can't find many of those, but I mean, still, it's like you see all this stuff and all the events that have happened in the world, and you still get books from the 40s and 30s that are in good shape. I mean,
yeah, it's kind of like Time Machine, like I said.
Yeah.
Just totally worth scoring those Golden Age books. And
but I mean, like we were talking before the podcast, I got killed on some CGC books that I got on site of Chicago. Like I got Adventures in the Terror. That Adventures in the Terror, Scotty. I think I got a 5.0 or a 5.5 on it.
That's not bad.
I thought I was going to be a 7.5.
So how many books did you drop off on site?
This is 4 or 3 or 4. I think 3. I did Plastic Man. I did all Police Comics #1 that I got from Paul Dubb's boy in Toledo, and then I did Adventures in the Terror. I think it was 28. I think it was on Ben's pre-code horror top 50.
I have no idea what you just said.
Would the police come back as?
5.0, I think.
A what?
5.0, 5.0.
Sounds like some dude was just like, "Yo, all right, these are just 5.0s. Let's get it done." Like
God dang it. No, hold on one second.
Books of the day.
Yeah, no kidding. I'm like, thanks, dude. Thanks. The real winners there. It was
what's the
Adventures
GPA
in the Terror.
on that?
Yeah, 20. Adventures in the Terror 28 here.
What's the GPA on that police?
I don't even.
700.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding.
No, I don't know. What was it? All Police Comics, right? Was that what it was, dude? I can't remember. It's.
I don't follow the Golden Age at all.
I know.
So when you guys say names, I don't listen. I don't have room for that knowledge.
Oh, come on, buddy.
I don't. I know what I know. And there's no room for Golden Age. I'm not knocking it.
No, I know. It's a. You know what's funny? You got to be very careful with Golden Age. You know what I'm saying? It's like.
That's what I'm saying. Like I don't even want to touch. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole.
I mean, it's not even that bad of a rabbit hole. Like, I got to give props to Tony L. Like, he's kind of got me down the path. Him and Ben C. And we talk about a lot of Golden Age books, me and Tony. But you got to know what you're doing. I'm going to stress that very.
I don't want to learn.
Yeah.
I imagine there's a lot of reprints out there that could really bite you.
Well, not even just the reprints. It's like you got to. There's a formula, we'll call it. You know, that.
Go on.
Okay.
I mean, you can't drop that and be like.
Okay. So my formula kind of is, and I don't. Tony's gonna be all pissed at me. That's okay.
Cover's got to be first, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, cool covers, obviously, but I mean, that's subjective though, because it's like, if it's cool, is it a cool cover to you, or can it be a cool cover? Like Plastic Man, that's just a cool cover, obviously, but no recent sales. You never buy it on eBay because you're setting the market.
It's Authentic Police #1.
Authentic Police Comics #1. Okay, I can look it up. So basically what I kind of do is like look at some books and don't have any kind of sales in like GPA, and then try to get, and just comparatively speaking, you don't want to overpay for something either, and then something with low census numbers too. I mean, that's kind of the formula I use.
And then just hope that somebody wants that book.
Yeah, I mean, that's the bigger thing. Usually #1s and stuff like that. Like a 5. Okay, so like Authentic Police, is it Police Cases, dude? Right, #1.
Yeah.
So like, I'll use this book as an example. So I got it for a pretty good deal.
Sure you did.
Yeah. So a 5.0 went for May 2014 at $119, and the highest grade is 8.0. I mean, if you go on the census, there's only 10 universal graded. I mean, so I don't
Can't go wrong there.
Yeah, I mean, and 9 of them or 8 of them are 5.0 or better. So I mean, the highest is an 8.0. So I mean, it's not like you got a 9.8 rolling around. So, and it's a #1. It's got a cool cover. St. Jude's publication. Golden Age guys. I mean, and then the other thing too is like once you put it on eBay, it's like how many think of who collects Golden Age? Who collects Golden Age? Guys in their older years, right? I guess I'm gonna quotate
guys with money.
And guys with money. So where are they gonna look at? eBay. I bought a Vic Flint #1 that I got for a good deal that I CGC'd, and I turned around and flipped it for like, what do we pay? Like Scotty, like was it like 500, I think, or something? I mean,
I don't know. Like I said, I don't pay attention.
Yeah, I think it was like 500 or 550. I mean, and I had maybe $200 into it. Okay, it wasn't like I made $8,000 on it, but I mean, I made a good money and turned it and churned it and invested it into something else. But Golden Age is tough, man. I mean, you got to know what you got to know what you're looking at, and obviously it's hard to buy Golden Age online because there's the paper quality wasn't great back then, and we talked about it. Me and Sean were talking about our pressing books and stuff like that, and it's hard to press Golden Age books because staples could pop very easily. That's a major concern. And like you said, and like we said, the paper quality isn't that great. So I mean, trying to wet it out and trying to steam it out and do all that stuff, it's it is kind of grade what you kind of get is the grade you kind of get, and there's not too much you can do about it. So that's what I kind of do.
That whole brittleness is also playing with fire, because then you can just destroy any money you put into that book.
Yep. I mean, like you said, like Scotty knows what's a staple pop, Scotty, like a 4.5, 4.0.
From the cover, 3.5.
Yeah. So you could have a 6.0 and you go to press it like, oh, I'm gonna squeak an extra 0.5 out of it, and you pop that staple on the cover, it's over, dude. I'm not saying throw it away, but I mean you
jacked it up.
Yeah. And that's what I was worried about plastic, man. So me, Sean, and Trey were talking about it, and he's like, Sean's like, hey, before we put it in, give me the go or no go. And me and Sean had lengthy discussions about it. He goes, we're kind of worried about staple popping. And I said, you know what? I go, we talked about like, if it was your book, would you do it? And Sean's like, yeah. He goes, I think you should be solid about it. I'm like, yeah, that's cool. And I knew the staples were pretty secure, but they were kind of on top. So it's like, when you hit that spine, it's going to get all that pressure right on the staples. But I mean, it worked out fine, and Trey's the man at what he does. So, but yeah, like you said, Scotty, I mean, you pop that staple, man. Yeah, it's a different ball game. Yeah,
you're gonna have a bad time.
Yeah.
So the on-site grading at C2E2 was that did you notice any disaster stories or anything from that other than yourself?
I got hooked up because I'm VIP, Brian. Okay, I don't go to Chicago. I don't go to cons, man. I send my books. No, John Brown actually hooked me up very, very graciously because he was in Indianapolis, and he took my book because he was in India at the same time selling at a different booth, and he took him to C2E2.
Okay. Flipside silent partner.
Yes, Flipside silent partner. Yes. So big ups to John Brown for hooking me up big time. So I know I'm got a bill waiting, so we'll see how much it is, but. No, he hooked me up very graciously, and I'm glad because I was going to give him the Ben S, and Ben S couldn't make it to C2E2. So John Brown said, hey, I'm going anyways. I'll give you some, if you want to give me your book. So on Sunday, I just handed him some books. I was like, here you go, buddy. So it was he said it was bananas crazy.
I bet it was.
I mean, I'm just glad I think he got a vendor pass. So he got in before the mad rush. I couldn't imagine if you were at C2E2 and you had a regular pass and trying to get in the CGC line. I saw one post on the main page about some guy who was trying to get in there, and they cut him off. They cut off the line because it was pretty much done taking books. It was like at 1:30.
Wow.
And I mean, was it usually, Scotty, 12, maybe noon? They open usually, I think, on Fridays. Just in general. So, yeah, I mean, an hour and a half and it's done.
On-site's the best value you can get.
Yeah. I mean, that's why we kind of do the Balmer thing. I mean, honestly, that's the only reason we kind of do Baltimore, technically. I mean, I hate to say it. I mean.
Well, you're also, saving so much money and shipping and.
Yeah, that's the bigger thing.
And I don't know about you guys, but I'm always so worried about shipping, books that I'm grading.
We've done a lot. I'm going to knock on some wood right now. We've been blessed with good shipping. They did drop a book of mine, but that happens when you're submitting the amount of books we do. But I think, you gotta, and Sean's kind of talked about it. We kind of use, the stored folios.
Oh yeah. Those things are killer.
And we just burn a store folio. It's like wasting what, Scotty, $5-6 maybe for a store folio, $10 if you're buying at retail, maybe 11, whatever it is. Yeah, okay, so $12 for a store folio. You're gonna, I'll sacrifice the $12 and make sure my books are
secure. Yeah. I tried. That's one thing that kind of blew me away is I tried dropping off a bunch of books at it wasn't on site, but just where you can just go drop it off at a con. And they wouldn't allow me to give them the store folio. They're like, no, we got to take it out of the store folio.
Yeah. That's the scarier part. It's like, I know a lot of people who do the con drop off, but it's like, it's nice because you're giving it to them, but the bad thing, it's like your books are going with a bunch of other stuff too that people can, the CDC guys, they care about it, but they don't care about it, kind of, you know.
Well, not only that, that's not their A squad.
Yeah, that's true too.
I'd love to dumpster dive at CGC then, see how many store folios and top loaders you can get for free.
You would.
I'm well, you know, and me and Sleepy John were talking about this. I think I brought it up before. It's like that's the thing that thing doesn't piss me off. The thing that pisses me off is why don't they give upgraded Mylar bags? They ship books back.
Yes. I don't give a fuck.
I know, but it's like it's a Kroger's plastic bag, for Christ's sake. It's like, give me a Mylar, I'll pay an extra buck. It's like,
yeah.
Wouldn't everybody pay an extra $1 for a Mylar? I mean,
yeah. Well, I got an even, crazier gripe. When they send you back your books that don't make the pre-screen and you had them in Mylars, but they put that little sticker on there that there's no way you can pull off, so you can't reuse those Mylars.
Yeah.
I mean, that drove me crazy.
Well, Scotty had that with Ghost in the Shell, right? Yours had a crazy sticker on it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like friggin' like 3 square inches.
Yeah, and I can't even. Well, I didn't even want to mess with it, Scotty. That's why I kind of just left those books alone. I was like,
dude, those fucking labels that you got are fucking pain in the ass.
Oh, I know, dude. I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. So Brian, so check this out. So we're at like Indy, and I bought these like Amazon labels, and I'm like, oh, that's cool, dude. It's like 1,000, right? So I got a shit ton of price, dude. It was terrible, and I'm just going around, boom, 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 and I made a mistake on one and tried to pull it off. Not happening, man. Not happening. But whatever. I mean,
well, you got to use them. You already bought them.
Well, I burned through most of them. I mean, I just put another label over the top of it, just right over it. I mean, who cares?
You got to throw the F5 logo on there, so when people buy it, they can't take it off.
Yeah.
Well, we do that on the boards.
Oh, I was gonna say that. Yeah, I love getting old books, and you looking at the board, and it's some shop that you went to when you were a kid or something.
Yeah, we got to get a new logo for the stamp. But I mean,
yeah,
the logo's actually, I really like your guys' logo. I think it's pretty cool.
The new one or the old one?
I think it's the new one or the old
red one, the red and black one.
No, the one where it's the guys kind of walking.
Yeah.
We're going to be unveiling a new logo real soon.
Yeah. So
stay tuned.
Yeah, stay tuned. Dun.
Shameless plug of the night.
Yeah.
And G.I. Joes.
All right, let's get into it. So basically, I figured what I'll do is I'll just kind of start off on, a part one, get a little bit into some of the collecting of the figures, and we'll see where it goes from there. A lot of us, I think, got started collecting comics from G.I. Joes. At least a lot of people I talked to that are my same age. It was either the first Batman movie with Keaton kind of got us started, or G.I. Joes or Transformer cartoons from when we were a kid and getting the comics and reading the G.I. Joe or Transformer comics. And I know for me, the thing that reminds me of my childhood the most, and that I get pretty excited about whenever I see them, are old school 3 3/4 figure G.I. Joes.
Yeah.
I can remember clear as day sitting with my brother, dumping out all the figures on the floor, and, you'd pick one at a time, and you each had your favorite figures, and you spent 90% of the time playing with them, setting them up, and, 10% of the time actually, with a battle, and going to the store when all the new figures would come out. And I can remember walking into Toys R Us and just seeing aisles of new figures,
The packaging was always so cool, I thought.
Oh yeah, they killed it.
The card on the back, like that was, I always loved that, like reading their stats and their bio.
Yeah. So basically, a lot of people already know that they were kind of, first of all, G.I. Joe came out in the 60s. It was just like a male version of Barbie, and most of our parents. Yeah, that's exactly what it was. They wanted something for boys to play with when the Barbie sale was going crazy. And then in I think it was 1983, they decided with the Star Wars craze of the 3 3/4 figures to kind of jump back in the scene, and Hasbro I think it was that the cartoon was decided to do first, and I'm not 100% sure on this. I probably should be, considering I'm did a little research, but the cartoon came along first, and they wanted to kind of mix it in with the comics and then the toys and everything. And they had Larry Hama, who was working at Marvel at the time. He had a project he was doing for a Nick Fury, new comic for Nick Fury, and he had kind of thought up this idea of the Fury Force, he called it, where he would Nick Fury would kind of be the Duke like or General Hawk like character, and all the Joes would that we know and love were Nick Fury's friends, and he had different names from all at that time. But Marvel kind of passed, and Hasbro kind of jumped on it, and in 1983 they put out their first set of figures. I know as a kid I couldn't stand these figures, because, and some of you guys are going to remember this, but they that first wave of figures from '83, they call them the straight arm figures, and that's because their arms didn't turn. You could lift them up or down, but you couldn't move them in and out sideways.
Did you hear about why they made Snake Eyes all black?
No, let's hear it.
It was on the toys that. What was that documentary called?
The Toys That Made Us.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
They were talking about they had to cut cost, so in order to do that, they just decided that, like, all right, they could either cut out like 1 or 2 embellishments per character, or cut out like 10 embellishments on one. So they did that. They cut out 10 embellishments and just made like one character all black. And then that ended up being the most popular one.
I was just about to say, everybody's favorite character was that Snake Eyes figure.
Did they use a sorry, as I'm going through this, didn't they use was it a Luke Skywalker figure as the base for Snake Eyes, or was it a different one maybe?
No,
I don't remember that. Yeah.
They used something. They repurposed something for the prototypes, but
yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the things I know from that first wave of figures, obviously everybody loves that Snake Eyes figure. That's that first Snake Eyes figure from that first wave, whether it's the straight armed version or in the following year in 84, I believe, maybe mid 83, they put out a second wave, which they did with the arms that you could move in and out, and everybody, all the kids liked it so much that they actually redid the first wave with the movable battle grip arms, they call them. So there is the first wave Snake Eyes that has the straight arms, and a first wave Snake Eyes that has the swivel arms. So, but that first wave Snake Eyes is probably out of the normal figures, the non-variant, air figures of that first wave, that's probably the most expensive one on a resale market. I've seen them go for as high as $80 raw type thing, and obviously carded, they're in the $2,000 range, if not more.
Now, like, what kind of condition would you consider, like, played with, like, average, like, what is
Well, this is a major issue with Joe collectors, is the condition of a couple things. Obviously, the first thing is the crotch. Everybody knows about that crotch piece popping off. We all laughed about it when we were kids, and most
where the rubber band breaks.
Yep, the crotch, and then the thumbs falling off. Because I know, me as a kid, I would always, move the thumbs in and out depending on the gun it was holding, so you could get a little bit more room to put the different size guns in there and stuff.
Yeah, I broke rubber bands crazy. Yeah.
So condition on Joe's goes like this. You want to make sure the crotch is there. You want to make sure that the rubber band part isn't a big deal, because you can replace the rubber bands.
And I heard that at Indy too. Some guy was talking about how he's like, he's one of those guys like, I had this one and this one. He's talking to his kid. His kid was like 6. And he's like, Dad, what happened to them all? He's like, I played with them. I replaced rubber bands on like every one of them.
Yep. And all you got to do is get, I forget what size O-rings they are, but there's just these O-rings you can buy at a hardware, or go on to one of the Joe pages, the Joe fan pages on the internet, and they sell them too. But
no, that's not considered restoration.
Well, from most collectors that I know, and they do it, they're going to do it themselves because they'd rather have their Joes, when the rubber band is broken or when it's old, it not only will it break, it's really loose. You want everything to be tight together. Mm-hmm. So the rubber band isn't that big of a deal because you can replace it on 90% of the figures. There are some figures you can't replace it on, just because you can't open the figure. If you guys remember that all figures had a screw in the back where you put the backpack, and you can remove that screw and the figure basically comes apart. You can break the chest off from the back and you replace the rubber band. And it can be a pain in the ass, but 90% of figures you can replace that screw. But the crotch, the thumbs, and then a new thing that I've been noticing a lot lately is the elbow cracking. The figures will crack at the elbows, and a lot of collectors who are getting back into getting Joes and stuff, they want to make sure that elbow isn't cracked. So you'll see a lot of figures say, uncracked elbows, or something to do with that. But yeah, that first wave is the biggest pain in the ass, just because of the straight arm figures. And so that's where we first introduced to that first wave, including Snake Eyes, which is most people's favorite character. That second wave that came out was when they introduced a couple other major figures. Destro, everybody loves Destro. They had a couple of mail-in figures that you could get, which was always a big deal with Joe's. They always did some kind of mail-in special.
I remember that, you'd see in the magazine or something.
Yep.
Didn't they have a bunch of stuff I think they had mail-ins and comic books too, right?
Oh yeah. I think the most famous mail-in was the fridge. If you remember back in the '86 pairs, they did a fridge figure that you could mail in and get fridge GI Joe, and kids went gangbusters over it. It's still one of the main figures that a lot of kids who grew up in the '80s look for, and it's kind of cool because it even shows him smiling. You could see the missing tooth. So one of the things that if you're out and you're looking at these figures, know that if their condition is decent, there are certain figures that you could sell them on eBay or these Facebook groups, and you can clean up on. That first wave, one of the figures that it sells for quite a bit. It's very rare. They did a mail-in for the original Cobra Commander, the version with the chrome face plate, and they call it the Mickey Mouse Cobra Commander. And the reason they call it that is because the painting on the chest Cobra emblem wasn't done correctly, and it almost looks like a Mickey Mouse head instead of a Cobra emblem. Yeah. So that figure can get you a pretty penny. A lot of people want that figure. That's one of the main figures they try to pick up. So yeah, that's one of those ones to look out for with the Snake Eyes and the Scarlet. Scarlet's another figure that everybody loved from the cartoon and the comics. She was, I think there was 3 female characters that they showed pretty heavily, and G.I. Joe was loved by a lot of girls growing up because they had quote unquote strong female types, and that was a major thing that that people talk about Hama creating, that strong female type, quote unquote, with the boys in the military thing. But let me go back here. So anyways, let's get back into that second wave, which came out in '83. They have that Destro figure. couple other figures that might pick up some money. Gung Ho, everybody was a fan of Gung Ho. He was a pretty outspoken character in the cartoon. Major Blood and Duke, they have 2 mail-in versions of that, but it's kind of hard to tell the difference. There's no real difference that you can tell on the figures themselves, but if they're unopened and they're in a bag with a red file card. So if you guys see any of those are some tough figures to pick up. Another thing with those early Joes that you can make a decent amount of money on in the secondary market is those Cobra soldiers, the blue regular Cobra soldiers.
Basically, stormtroopers.
Yes, exactly. And a couple of them are really tough to find in good condition because those chest emblems would flake off, after playing with them for a long time. But a couple of those figures had a silver chest emblem, which was pretty delicate. And I believe one of them was a figure that came with one of the vehicles, the hang glider figure or hang glider vehicle.
So cool.
Yeah, that was one of their early vehicles that they made. Let's see here. You were talking, Scott, earlier about the file cards. One of the cool things about the file cards that harkens back to the comics is Larry Hama did all the file cards, I believe, until the last couple series of the figures that came out. So,
nice.
Yeah. So,
where are some good spots to look for these?
Flea markets, man. Flea markets are always great places to look for them. Just the other week, I picked up a semi-grail figure that I've been looking for a while in decent condition, which is one of the figures that came out in the third series wave, which is one of the most famous waves, and that was Zartan. But you can go into flea markets and find, sometimes people just don't even want to, bag them or try and put prices on them separately, and you'll just see bins full of them. I always love picking them up at flea markets. Garage sales for years, probably 10 years ago. I haven't seen very many at garage sales.
Now let me ask you, when you see a bin, do you just buy the whole bin, or do you dig like you would with comics?
It depends. First thing I'm gonna do is look at condition. If they're good condition and they're the older figures, I'm buying the whole bin.
Okay.
Then what are you charging? What's your value on a bin? I mean, say there's 50 in a bin or 100 in a bin, like 10 cents a Joe.
No. If you can pick them up for, depending on the figure,
I don't know.
Hey, what do you got? A Diamond Joe?
Yeah, Diamond Joe.
No, you can usually get them for anywhere from like $5 to $20 a figure. Some people will do a little bit of research and throw like $10 on certain figures, but you're going to make your money up even with those. I mean, a raw Snake Eyes figure or a raw Storm Shadow figure in good condition can fetch you anywhere from 50 to 80 bucks.
Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah. These figures were, probably as big as a lot of our big parts of our childhood, as much as He-Man and Transformers.
Well, and the good thing about those, they're not as big as like the sideshow guys. I mean, the very first ones were, but the later 80s ones are like smaller, where it's easier to ship. That was my problem with collectibles like that. It's hard to ship, man. I mean, but the smaller Joes are easy. I mean, but still. And
you can ship them for really cheap.
Yeah.
There's a real big market right now, secondary market for Joes on these Facebook groups. I mean, there are guys making, and Instagram too. There are guys making a lot of money selling, their old toys on Facebook and Instagram. They've always been a pretty big seller on eBay.
I got a whole bunch of old WWE like F action figures.
Yep. The bigger ones or the I remember they made some that were actually decent size. They were like a little bit bigger than He-Man.
Yeah, they kind of articulated, kind of. Remember, like you could like push them down, like the rockers I think could push down, and they would jump up, kind of.
Yep.
Or like you would put an arm back and clothesline somebody.
Yeah.
I had an Andre the Giant.
Yeah.
I remember getting off a little bit off topic.
Who's that?
Off topic. What's that?
Somebody just joined.
That's Mega Matt DeVoe.
What up, dudes?
Oh, what up, brother?
Yo,
What's going on?
We're talking about G.I. Joes, brother.
The more you know.
See? No, we're talking about Brian's giving a great dissertation on the collecting G.I. Joe figures.
Yeah,
Nice.
Continue. Part 1 on those early figs. But yeah, so they're you can pick up figures for anywhere from $2 to $5. You've scored for a piece. If they're the older figures from, say, the first wave in '83 up until like I can't remember which the wave it is, but the late mid '90s figures, a lot of those figures will sell. And just check the condition, make sure they're not all rusty and losing legs. And
do you have like a spreadsheet, or do you have like a is there like a? No, I'm just saying, is there like
His wheels are turning.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I like to know.
No, there's a couple of good web pages. One of the best one is yojo.com. You can go to it and go to they have a database there where you can go by wave or by year and see the figures and figures that
this is like real shit, dude. Holy shit, they actually do have a database. Holy smokes.
I mean, this is a huge part of the toy market. I'm not even getting into the carded figures because most of the figures you're going to find are
the mail-in Cobra Commander. Jesus smokes. Yes. What is this?
Yeah, right. So a couple figures. I'll name off some of the figures that are probably your biggest bets, your best bets on secondary market. Obviously, Snake Eyes. He had multiple versions. The first 3 versions are the most popular. His second version came with the wolf figure, or the little wolf. And in my opinion, that second figure, the second version of Snake Eyes, is probably one of the best action figures ever made. I'll pick it up anytime I see it. Condition, as long as it's got a leg and an arm, I'll pick it up. Because it's one of those figures that you can make money on basically no matter what.
Sounds like it's an ASM 300.
Yeah, exactly. Storm Shadow. Everybody knows Storm Shadow is his brother and the I'm not sure exactly how to say it. I always call it the Arashikage clan, the ninja clan that Snake Eyes grew up with, and the whole backstory. A lot of people know about that. But the Storm Shadow figure, that first Storm Shadow figure, it's all white. It's hard to find in good condition. If you can find it in decent, where the color hasn't changed much, usually they're a little yellowed. If they're still white, you're going to get $50 to $80 for that figure.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Scotty, we're changing our name to Forgotten 5 Comics and Collectibles.
And Joe's.
Another figure that's super high on the list is Firefly. He's a Cobra figure. A lot of people, when they first see him, they kind of think he's another ninja. They call him the saboteur. He's their like kind of demolition expert, kick-ass looking character. They do some really cool things later on in the collector waves with him, where they change his outfit and stuff. And
wasn't he like bright orange in one?
He was. You're right.
I think I had that one when I was a kid.
Yeah.
They also were saying too, dude, and how it's made. One of the best things ever was that big old battleship thing that was like 6 feet long.
That is probably the grail of G.I. Joe collectors, the USS Flag.
Yeah, it's like isn't it like crazy amounts of money, like 10 grand or something? I mean,
yeah, I went to a little toy show here in the Valley not too long ago, and a guy had it wasn't unopened, but the box was in perfect condition. Everything was there. There's a lot of small pieces that end up missing when you usually find that thing. And I want to say he was asking like $3 grand for it.
Wow. I mean, where do you put that thing? It's
Yeah,
like,
it's
Well,
huge.
a lot of Joe people will set it up in a bedroom, man, and just, I mean, that is their, their coffee table. Hey,
Hey,
they
man.
do some
Buy what
crazy
you
stuff
like.
with it. Yeah, exactly. I remember being a kid, and I had a buddy on my block growing up, and one Christmas, he got the USS Flag, and every kid on the block was over at his house, checking out this
just
this
destroying
aircraft.
that thing.
Yeah, just massive. I mean, it took up 2/3 of his room, I want to say. So, the grail of GI Joe
I
figures.
had the GI Joe General.
Yes,
That thing was pretty big.
The vehicles is a completely different market than the figures.
Yeah.
The figures will always sell. Sometimes you have time. You put figures up, and 90% of the time you're going to sell them within a pretty decent time period. They do well on auctions. The vehicles, sometimes I've had rough times with them. If they're not in good condition,
or you're missing any parts.
Yeah, there's a lot of parts missing. You can have trouble with them, but you can still make money on them.
But the shipping kills you, right? I mean,
exactly. That's I've come to find out that with most things on eBay, the shipping is the pain in the ass.
Yeah.
But so yeah, those three figures are some of the hottest in the first wave. There's probably some that I'm missing, but one of the figures that I kind of talked about earlier was, and it's my second favorite figure to look for, is that Zartan figure. He was a major character in the cartoons. He was kind of like the antagonist for both against Cobra and GI Joe. He would work with Cobra a little bit, but he kind of didn't like Cobra either. And he was leader of a group called the Dreadnoughts, who all had Australian accents for some reason.
And cheesy 80s Australian accents.
Yeah, and they looked like they were part of Mad Max's crew, so that's probably why they were Australian. And one of the coolest things about this character is there's two things. One, he could change his disguise to match anything he wanted. Look like different characters, and he can kind of like react and become like a chameleon of everything. The second thing that was really cool about him is I believe the sunlight hurt him, and the figure would actually turn blue if you brought it out in the sunlight.
I remember that guy.
Yes. So as a kid, that figure was
the coolest.
Yeah. And these days, you can still find them, and most of them will still turn blue in UV light.
It's funny.
They just don't make them like they used to, man.
And it was a really cool figure because you couldn't buy it the figure alone. It came as a vehicle set with his. They actually called his little vehicle as a little swamp skier thing called the Chameleon, and you could break it down and make it look like a pile of junk that he was carrying around, as the disguise type thing. And the third coolest thing about this figure is the actual toy came with a backpack that you would open up, and there was a little mask in there that you could put on the figure's face and make him look like, a different person. And one of the cool things about that figure, if you ever see the figure with the file card or the figure with the toy box itself, the early versions of that figure on his file card, it talks about him being a paranoid schizophrenic. Yeah. And
they had to edit that, huh?
They did. They got some backlash and they edited it. Yeah. And
whoops.
Yep. So if you can find that, and that's one of the things that kind of got me on this crazy thing about GI Joe's the last 3 months, is because I found a Zartan. It was opened, but everything was in perfect condition. The box was perfect. The people didn't tear it up. It came with all the blueprints. All the vehicles used to come with these blueprints, and they would tell you how to put the vehicle together and where to put the stickers, and everything was there. So
I looked him up. What's that long piece that comes with him? Like check out the link I put in the chat.
Okay. So that chameleon, that long piece that looks like a rope. So that's actually attaches to that box-looking thing, and
it's like a sled thing.
Yeah, and that sled breaks down into a bunch of pieces, and you put all the pieces in that box, and he looks like he's just carrying dragging a box of junk behind him. And, I mean, that's classic. They, like you said, they don't make toys like this anymore.
Yeah,
these toys were really thought out. The material they used to make them was really good material. The backstories, everything about them. Just talking about this type of stuff and how great these characters were takes me back to my childhood.
Dude, $70 for this? Jeez, oh Pete.
Yeah. And there are some figures that come later that you can sell for decent money, but the majority of the figures that sell for good profit are those probably wave 7, 5, 6, and 7 and back from like 1990 to 83 to 90.
Gotcha.
And after that, they kind of started cheaping out on some of the material they're making weapons with. And
dude, somebody got a flag for $14.55 on February 28th.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. That's was it unopened?
The picture has a picture of it, so I'm guessing it's open.
Okay. Well, that's still a decent deal. I mean,
there's a Firefly for $7.25. What's Jeez, oh Pete, man.
Yeah,
I'm missing out on this.
Let me tell you, carded G.I. Joe figures.
Mm-hmm.
You go an extra step and you get them AFA graded, and you can make a killing. I mean, thousands of dollars.
Yeah, this guy's got a Mutt Junkyard one for like $600, and it's an 80 graded 80.
Yep. I want to say not too long ago, and a lot of you guys will like this story because it has to do with He-Man too. Leonardo DiCaprio sold his collection of G.I. Joes and He-Man figures, and he had bought every single figure, and they were all carded, and he had them, every single one of them graded.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And he had a huge auction a couple years back and got rid of most of them. But that's the kind of thing that I think about. If I ever hit the lotto, I would do my best to find some of these, old toys and that bring me back to my childhood. And I think the reason we all enjoy finding those things that, remind us of being a kid where, we didn't have any worries and we could kind of think about back to the time where there was no job, there was no, you didn't have to worry about your friends getting hurt or people passing away. There was just no worries in the world except for what cereal you were going to, eat on Saturday morning and which cartoon you were going to watch.
Mm-hmm.
I can remember
time.
Yeah, I can remember waking up Saturday mornings to watch the new G.I. Joe episode, as that being the greatest thing in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And
like you said too, there's a bunch of groups out there. I think we see them on Instagram, don't we, Scotty? Do we follow one dude? He does like a bunch of like action figure like restoration.
And that's another huge thing. A lot of people are doing that with these. You can do some really crazy things with these new 3D printer machines.
Yeah, and that's what they do. I guess they 3D print, like, say you're missing like an arm or you're missing like an accessory, they'll 3D print something out for you.
Yeah. One of the pieces that I was talking about earlier that always breaks is that crotch piece on the waist part, and people are 3D printing the waists. And I mean, that's pretty darn cool. Things that you can do nowadays with a soft, a 3D printer and some internet's, shareware.
Yeah.
So another thing a lot of people are doing are 3D printing basically new figures. I mean, just making figures in the same style as those 3 3/4 figures were made, but coming up with their own characters, which is a whole nother part of this thing, you know.
I saw a booth at Indy that it looked like they would scan you and then make an action figure out of you.
Yeah.
It was probably 3D printed.
Yeah, and
Cool.
they do a Joe Con every year, a GI Joe Con, and it's kind of like it's pretty crazy. It's gotten crazy over the years.
Are people cosplaying as GI Joe characters?
Oh, it's gone way beyond that. They're doing not only cosplaying, but they have backgrounds where you can stand like you're in the packaging of a carded figure, and they put a little bubble up in front of you, and you look like you're a carded figure. And they can do, you know, that whole
That's cool.
Yeah. So they're, you know, like most things, it's cyclical, and with the movies that came out, kind of reignited some of this, but they still aren't making the quality of some of these 80s figures. I don't think that they will ever get anywhere near the coolness of the 80s toys.
Well, it's a production standard too. I mean, I think like all these low cost countries now, and like
now
try to get stuff for cheaper, you know.
Are they making Joe figures now?
So one of the cool things that they're doing is, and this kind of all started with that the GI Joe Con, is in the early days of the Joe Con, they would kind of offer a con figure, and they would have somebody make them and, you know, bag them. But it got every year it would get better and better, and they would offer brand new figures. They would do repaints of old figures and offer these big sets, and, you know, that came with like a Cobra group and a Joe group, and just go crazy. So through that con, Hasbro started the same type of thing they started with the He-Man collector group, where you would sign up for this group and you could get new figures. And they vote.
In the mail.
Yeah. They vote on a set of figures they're going to make for that year. They have like 20 characters that they throw up, and they ask all the Joe fans to vote on 8 figures that you want to see them produce, and, you know, make, remake, and, you know, just make a, they have more points of articulation and stuff like that. They aren't the same, which I'm not into that. I like the original 3 3/4, not the straight arm, but the second wave and up 3 3/4 model. I think those are the figures. I don't want any more points of articulation. I want the original type. But a lot of fans are buying these new ones, and some of those figures are really expensive too. You know, they do a lot of San Diego Con variants, where they'll team Transformers with Joes. They did just the other year, they did a special set for San Diego Con where it was one of the really famous GI Joe vehicles, the Sky Striker, which was I want to say an F-16 jet, and they did it where the Sky Striker was, you know, it was as big as the actual toy when in the 80s, or maybe a little bit smaller, but pretty decent size. And then it would also be a Transformer, and then you could get it with the GI Joe, and it kind of played on the whole GI Joe Transformer comic thing, and that was pretty cool. But other than that, like, they did some new stuff based on the figures, and then for a 35th anniversary, they re-released a lot of the old figures with new body types. You know, same kind of paint style, and they redid the cards, but they kind of looked the same, but they were new, you know, a little spiffier, and kind of like what they did when they re-released the Star Wars figures back in '96 with the Power of the Force set, where they're basically the same look, but made a little bit different. And they did that like 5 or 6 years ago, and they released quite a few figures. I picked up a bunch just for nostalgia factor. So there's a lot of stuff out there. There's a lot of those con figures are worth a ton of money. They're
short printed.
Yes, and they did special types. One of the figures that a lot of people like to pick up and they remember is the Bat figure, which was a Cobra robot battle android trooper. And that's what Bat stood for. And it was so cool.
Did he have the chest plate that had like something in it?
It was like almost like a hologram.
Yes.
And you could take off his arms from the forearm down and put on
coolest.
Yeah, other things, like a saw or a gun.
Mm-hmm. He had like a circular saw, right?
Yes. And
that was my favorite. I had that guy.
It is one of the coolest figures ever, and they do cool repaints of that for cons, and those sets sell really well, and they're just basically exclusives. If you look up eBay and G.I. Joe exclusives or con exclusive, there are some you can see some pretty cool figures that sell for a decent amount. You're not going to find many of those in flea markets.
I saw those. I saw Rom. They did Rom the Space Knight.
Yes. Yep. That was recent that they did that, which was a pretty cool set. I think they did another cool thing is that I want to say you guys were talking about it recently, or it could have been the EUD guys. The whole thing where IDW maybe did put Mask, G.I. Joe, Transformers, ROM, and maybe another group all in one comic. Does that sound right? Do you guys remember that?
That was
just
probably
recently.
Those guys.
So anyways, they did a comic like that, and so G.I. Joe said, all right, we're going to release some of those figures as Joe's. So they released a Matt Tracker, I think his name was, one of the Mask figures. It's like the toy Mask. They released a Matt Tracker as a G.I. Joe. They released... trying to remember some of the other cool things they did for like that. I want to say they actually made a Larry Hama figure as a con exclusive, which is pretty cool considering, he created them and there he is as a G.I. Joe. And
in the documentary, he said that some of the Joes, he was running out of ideas, so he just looked around the office and was like making figures out of people around the office because he didn't have any creative juice left. So
well, I thought it was so cool that the way he kind of came up with a lot of that stuff. Larry Hama was he served in the service. He served in the military during the Vietnam War. I want to say he was in Vietnam from like 69 to 71 or something like that. He served 2 or 3 years in Vietnam. And a lot of these figures are based on his friends from the Vietnam War.
That's pretty interesting.
Which makes it even cooler to me because, these are based on real people. One of the figures.
One is the Bat.
Yeah, right. One of the figures that I remember as a kid that was really cool was a figure they had called Tunnel Rat. And I remember when I first got the figure, I remember my mom seeing that figure and telling me a story about one of her dad's best friends who lost his legs in Vietnam because he was a tunnel rat, and he was one of those guys that they would drop down in those holes, and and I remember just hearing about that, and then you started looking into what these guys went through, and it's all there. There's a figure that he probably created and gave a backstory based on a buddy he had in the war. And, that figure came with a backpack that had these cool little pieces you could pull out of the backpack, like flashlights and these things, that he could have as a tunnel rat. And there's so many characters. I mean, there were so many Joes over the years that they put a lot of effort and thought into with their backstory. And it was like a perfect storm. They had the figures, the cartoon, and the comic all hit like gangbusters.
Yeah.
And I don't think there was probably 4 or 5 toys from that era that are on the level of G.I. Joe. You know, He-Man, Transformers, G.I. Joe, and maybe Star Wars, because it started it all. But so yeah, secondary market. If you ever get a chance and you're in a flea market and you see some Joes, it's very easy to look these figures up and see what they're worth. If you ever find them and they're bagged with their original weapons, that's a whole nother ballgame. I went to an auction not too long ago here in Phoenix, where they had, it was a estate sale auction place, and one of the estate sales must have been a G.I. Joe collector, and it was just thousands of G.I. Joe figures. And they had a lot of freezer bags full of G.I. Joe weapons. That went for more than any lot of figures, any vehicle. It sold for, I want to say, $1,000.
Wow.
Because that's what most people lost, is those weapons. I mean, G.I. Joe made a killing selling battle packs of weapons, where instead it was a carded, instead of a figure, it was just repainted weapons, because so many kids lost their weapons.
They knew how to keep us coming back.
Yeah. So that's kind of part one. I mean, there's a lot of stuff we can talk about, but that's just kind of throwing a taste out there of what to start looking into. Maybe another time we can get into the whole variant thing, and they did a lot of errors with G.I. Joes, and then there's some figures that aren't worth anything, but if you can find that figure with a certain weapon that is very easily lost, it's super expensive.
Kind of like, was it Star Wars, like Boba Fett and the missile?
Yes, you're exactly right. I mean, not as crazy as that, because that was more of a promo type thing. Yeah. But real quick, I'll end on this because you brought it up. One of the most expensive G.I. Joe figures is a promo figure that they made of Destro, and he became known as the Pimp Daddy Destro. And it was a Destro figure where he had an outfit on that was like leopard cheetah print, and it was when G.I. Joe was waning and they were kind of starting to quit make them, and they made like 5 or 6 of the figures and actually carded them up as prototypes, and they never released it. Well, that figure, a couple of those prototypes ended up getting out on the secondary market, and you can just look up Pimp Daddy Destro on eBay or the internet, Google it, and see the prices on some of the original ones. Now, they did take that figure and release it as a new figure, as a San Diego Con exclusive, because there's so much lore behind that figure. And they've done that a couple times, but that figure is probably, I would say that's probably the most expensive figure, other than another rabbit hole I can get into later. They did a lot of figures from other countries, and as a real G.I. Joe aficionado and person that's collecting that stuff, some of those figures are some of the coolest figures, but they're impossible to find because they were done in Brazil or Mexico or Japan or England. And most of these figures, you got to remember, are based off of the American military. And during the 80s, we're kind of still in the Cold War and stuff. And so they made a few of them, and Hasbro licensed out some of those models and those molds, and some of those countries did some really cool playing around with the molds, made some different figures. So anyways, I'll kind of end it at that, and we'll get back into it on another go round.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome stuff, dude.
Damn.
There's a lot to take in.
Yeah, I kind of can get to talking about that stuff, considering it's, like I said, it's my childhood, man. And
how many figures do you have?
I have probably, I would say, over 200 raw, just old school, from the 83 set to the first wave till So I have a young, obviously I've talked about my brother before. My brother collected or bought the Joes until they quit making that first 3 3/4 wave in the late 90s. So, and I've kept all my original figures and then bought extra figures. So I probably got over 250, 300 figures that are just, out and about. And then I've got quite a few, maybe 50 or 60 carded figures. And I'm just starting to get to the point where I'm kind of displaying them. And if I'm not going to display them, I'm going to sell them. I don't want them sitting in a box somewhere and just, nobody enjoying them. But there's some figures that I am displaying. So yeah, I probably got a half a room full of them.
Nice.
Yeah. Very cool stuff.
That's incredible. Yeah, I can't imagine even I mean, it's good info to know, like if you're a garage sale hunter for sure, because I'm sure a lot of that stuff is coming out now.
Oh yeah, yeah. I got a, that I'm sure you guys have seen it. They have those apps. That's another thing to talk about. Is I'm sure most of us in CBSI know about them, but the offer ups and the
let goes.
Man, you can find some really killer deals on some of those. Not as much as you could. They're not as much now as when those first kind of came out. But when those first came out, I mean, I was finding G.I. Joe stuff. I remember a guy his dad had passed away, and his dad was into military stuff, because he was in the military. So he bought all the G.I. Joe stuff, back in the early 80s when, he was probably in his 40s at the time, just because he liked the military stuff. And he would pull them out, just put them together, display them, and then put them right back in the boxes. And when he passed away, his son came back to Phoenix and was going through his storage unit, and there was nothing but old G.I. Joe stuff with the original boxes. And
wow,
I went and picked up, I don't know, probably 20 vehicles, including some of no USS Flag, but a Sky Striker, a Rattler, a lot of the really cool vehicles, and the entire first wave of figures with all their weapons. Entire second wave of figures with all their weapons. Like Matt said, a lot of these, if you get lucky, you can walk into the right situation at the right time and just,
What were you feeling when you walked into that? Because I would imagine that's kind of like one of those very few opportunities, that lucky day.
I was scared that I was going to lose out on it. I was scared I was going to show up too late. You know what I mean? Like, oh, somebody got here before you did, because what he had done is he had put them up, and I had contacted him and said, hey, when can I meet up? And he says, well, I got somebody coming out to look at some stuff. And I was like, I'm just going to, yeah. And the person didn't take any of the toys.
Wow.
And that's exactly what it was. I thought I was going to walk in and there's going to be nothing left. And I mean, it was like that treasure hunting find when you find those, walk into an antique store and they've got a short box of Golden Age books or something,
where your adrenaline just starts pumping.
That's exactly right. Exactly right.
Hurry up and take my money.
Yeah. And I remember telling the guy, like, okay, how much do you want for the stuff? And I'm thinking he's going to tell me like 200-300. And he goes, well, if you buy these 3 over here, I'll give you the rest. And I'm like, deal. And I think I walked out with everything for $150.
Wow.
Yeah. It was really cool. Really cool. And
that's fun.
Yeah. Cool stuff.
Oh, man.
So how you doing, Matt?
Good. Yeah, I've been back from vacation, so it's trying to get into the swing of work and life.
That's the worst. I hate that readjustment.
Oh yeah, and like I'm used to staying up late, but when you're with your family and everyone's in one hotel room, you like end up going to bed at like 9:30. And so now I've kind of gotten used to like going to bed early, and it sucks.
How was the Grand Canyon?
It was awesome. If no one's ever been, it's one of those things that you think you know what it looks like, but once you get there, you can't explain the depth of the Grand Canyon.
It's like that Joe Rogan joke, dude. You ever hear Joe Rogan talk about the Grand Canyon? He's like, yeah, you drive like 10 hours to see a giant ditch. It's kind of cool.
Right. Right. Well, it's insane because you think it's just some ditch.
Right.
And like I've always imagined that you can just see the other side. Like if you just shot a zip line across, you would be there in 2 minutes. Yeah. If you had a zip line, it would probably take you 15 minutes to get across it, maybe if not longer. It's massive, and it's you can't see the bottom. So it's
just water.
Yeah, well, you can't even see the water. It's just the scale of it is just immense.
The thing that blows me away is that I don't know if they still do it. I've lived in Arizona for 33 years, and I've never been to the Grand Canyon. So talking about it, I feel like an idiot. But the stories of them taking the burros down the canyon, you're on the back of these donkeys, and they can barely walk on the trail. That's crazy.
Right. Well, we were reading about this, and this is way off spec talk, but but it's there's this one house that was built on the rim. I think it was on the north rim, and they were there in the early 1900s. They were the first building even nearby, and they would talk about how his wife would order pianos from catalogs, and I'm like, how does that even work? I can't imagine getting a piano there now, let alone in 1900.
Can you imagine having a house on the Grand Canyon?
Well, that's what, and they were saying that the house was right on the edge, right? It was right at the rim, and when they finally were able to take it over, because it was by the time the guy died, it was claimed a historical landmark. They found that it wasn't bolted to the rim at all. It was just sitting on top of the rim.
Wow.
And they showed pictures of this guy in his 80s doing work around the roof. And
wait, wasn't there a movie about this where the guy attached all the balloons to the house?
Right up, yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. But no, it was cool. And then we did Sedona, and that was pretty chill.
Yeah, Sedona's always you can either go and have a really good time or just be weirded out by all the weirdos.
There's a lot of crystals. You like crystals, that's the place to go.
Yeah.
I have not speculated on crystals. But how are you guys doing?
Good. I got my voice back, which is a plus.
Nice.
Besides that,
smooth as ever.
Yeah, besides that, not bad, man. Just got some books back from C2E2. So
how did those do? Did you get some graded?
Yeah, I got a Plastic Man #1, or not numbered, I guess. That came back at 5.0. I got
that's not bad.
I got a Authentic Police Cases #1 came back at 5.0, and then Adventures in the Terror 28 came back at 5.5.
Man, Sean's rubbing off on you.
I know, dude. I know.
I still haven't cracked. I haven't gone past 1980.
Really? Dude, that's all we were just talking about it before you came on about my golden age and pre-code horror addiction now.
Well, it's one thing, I was at WonderCon and I'm walking around there, and sure, there's a lot of old books. I could sit there on my phone and look up I don't know what a lot of these values are, and I don't know what my, how much room I have on some of these books. I can kind of guess on condition and whatnot, but I could sit there and spend the whole con on my phone looking up prices, and
it doesn't matter. When you we talked about that. So basically, before you got on, we were talking about there's a formula, and the formula is you don't want to have recent GPA sales, and the problem is if you see an old book and it's got GPA sales from 2012, I mean, you're not gonna know, you're kind of guessing, So.
But yeah, that's why I stick with moderns. I just dig in all the bins that people aren't digging in, and I found it. I found a lot of good stuff at WonderCon.
I told Dino I don't even care about Golden Age. I don't want to hear about it.
I mean, I want to get into it. It's
I have
just
no room for the information in my
I'm
brain.
gonna start a Golden Age hangout and invite people. You're gonna invite Scotty. Just I don't care if you ignore it.
I'll leave it.
The one area that I have been reading up on and paying more attention to is just definitely the pre-code horror stuff.
Yeah.
But I mean, you never see any of it. Like at WonderCon, I didn't see any. I never see any in my stores, so I never really get a chance to buy it.
It's hard. I don't even find that stuff. I gotta find it online and like lost websites that nobody knows about.
But that's the fun of it. I kind of like, the more you read up on it. So when you do see it, you know that it is a rare occurrence and you can jump on it. Where if I have all of Golden Age, I have no clue.
What did you any legendary pickups you want to talk about during WonderCon? Anything like ginormous?
The biggest was probably like a Dreamwalker Zero, $4. That was nice. And that's probably a $300 book. Raw.
That's a tough book to find.
That was probably the highlight. I grabbed a lot of books just to flip them. I was telling Sean my new plan for a lot of conventions, and it's been working. Is to go around to like Artist Alley, and try look up, try and find Brian Perillo with his Lady Death booth. You get the conventions ones. Don't get the like special editions that like are jewel crusted and pearl versions, and stay away from those. But if you get the convention variants, and as long as they're like limited to like 100-ish, maybe even less, like those are always easy quick flips, like quadruple what you paid for every time.
Wow.
Like that's what happened at San Diego Comic-Con. I tried it out and I bought like 6 of those, and I bought them for $20 each, and they each sold for $100, so that paid off everything I spent at Comic-Con was just those books alone.
Nice.
So I kind of do that. Like I went to the Do You Poo guy, that I don't recommend actually that title because it didn't really work out for me, but the Zombie Tramp books always work out really well. I bought a couple of those. They were the WonderCon variants, so they had like Disney ears since it's in Anaheim. Like those are $20 and flip those for 70, 75. So a lot of those little books just help you to buy the stuff that you want to keep. Like these are books I don't care about, but a lot of these books that lie in artist alleys, they're really, really low print. They have really strong collector bases, and they're really easy to move. So like compared to, and you can move across, like there's no line for these ever. Compared to like I went to the graffiti booth just to pick up a Supergirl foil, and I was in that line for about 45 minutes to get 6 books that I can maybe make $5 a piece on.
Maybe.
So and I just wanted it. I just wanted the art germ foil, and so I wanted them for $15 and not for $30, $35, online. So I kind of just stuck it out, but I just noticed going after those is just a complete waste of time. Waste of time. Like you can get it off a dealer's wall for $20, $25. And I would probably rather do that next time than just sit in that line for an hour. A lot of those convention variants are, there's a lot that hit. When I did my San Diego Comic-Con wrap up this past summer, I think every single book went up in value. Do they retain it? Absolutely not. But almost every single convention variant from San Diego Comic-Con goes up in value. And a lot of times it's only like $5, but most of them are about double.
I mean, I imagine it's the rush of people that weren't able to get there that, want that particular variant.
Yep. And that's the thing with like a lot of these conventions. There's always one book. There's always one book that's hot that weekend. And then there's always one book that sneaks by. And 5 years later, it's super expensive because no one was paying attention.
Like We Can Never Go Home one, that's DCC version.
Yeah, DuckTales. I mean, DuckTales NES, that was given away.
That's funny. funny you bring that up because I really wanted to talk to you about that book, and I was like, okay, Matt's going to come on. I want to talk to him about that book.
I have one, and like I got it from Walker, and it's not gradable. It's probably an 8. But yeah, it's not going anywhere until I can upgrade.
Well, why do you think? Do you just not want to grade a book if it's below 9.0 or something? Or
I mean, for moderns, I mean, for that book, it's probably fine. Like it would probably retain its value. But at this point, I know I'm not moving it, and I know that it's not, grading it's not going to really jump it up. So why spend the $30 to, when I could, devote that $30 to something that I want to flip,
Yeah.
Plus, if you want to sell it, you're better off selling it raw at that.
Yeah,
point.
and also it's like once I grade books, I'm super tempted to sell them. Like if I'm in a pinch and I really want to sell something, and it's like a PC book, when it's not graded, I'm like, okay, I don't want to sell it because I'm throwing away $200. But if it's graded, because I know it's near mint plus, I want to get it graded. I know that I don't want to like sell it for $100 because I know it's the 9.8.
Yeah. I picked up one of those, and the only reason I really wanted to get it graded was it was signed by Spectre.
Right.
I'm sure you've seen those. There's a couple copies out there.
Yeah, there's a bunch on there.
Yeah, and I was like, I wasn't going to get it graded, but then I figured, CBCS is doing the whole, the non-signature witness type
label.
thing. Yeah,
right.
The red label. And so I sent it to them, but that book is really tough, man. With the black cover and those spines, a lot of them, like you said, were because they were just given out like that. They were dinged up pretty gnarly, and
I wouldn't even bother grading it because you're kind of you're spending the money on them getting and certifying it. There's a really interesting trend right now. With comics, and this changed probably in the past 5 years. People don't care if there's a COA. It does help drive up the value when there is, but I'll list a McFarlane. If I have something signed by McFarlane and you say signed by McFarlane, no COA, it goes for almost the same price as if there was a COA for certain signatures. Where before, like 5 years ago, if it didn't have a COA, you were not going to get more than $30 for that book or whatever.
That's crazy.
But for like a book like that, you can just say, hey, it was signed by so-and-so, and people will say, sure, I'll take it, because they're just like you. They just want the book.
How many of those were made? Do you know?
I think it was 500. It might, should be about 500.
Okay. Yeah, I've noticed. I mean, obviously, when you guys first brought it up, on CBSI, a couple of years back now, just keeping an eye out for that book, and it never comes up for sale. I mean, there's one up now. I want to say it's a green label CGC, and it's signed by Spectre, but it's the first one I've seen in quite a while.
I think it's actually at a lull right now too, because the past couple raw copies have sold for like $300.
Yeah.
And that's actually been the lowest it's been in, it used to always move at like $500. So it's kind of dipped a lot.
Yeah, there's one on eBay for $800, 9.6 graded. Yeah,
like one sold in January in an auction, and it looks actually like it's probably in the same condition mine is, and it's $285. And maybe it ended at a weird time. I don't know, but still, that book, that's one of those books where it has the nostalgia. That's DuckTales is already really hot right now. It's coming back. It should be $1,000 book again.
It should be so hot right now.
The which one?
That Hansel.
Oh yeah. We were just playing on Dino's pie that he sent me. We were playing DuckTales the other night.
Nice, dude. Nice. I built another one for my boy. It's got every 64 game and back on it. So I added like every 64 game. He bought like an Amazon like controller set, USB controller set that has every every controller from 64 back on it.
Jeez.
You got it for like $20, dude.
That's pretty awesome.
I'm like, dude, I should buy that so I can play 64 games. It's hard to play GoldenEye with like a regular PlayStation controller.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that 64 was so weird. I didn't have one, so like whenever I played it, I could never get it right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I bought every Nintendo set. The first Nintendo set I didn't buy was basically the Wii U, and then I still don't have a Switch, but
yeah,
eventually. I just kind of stayed away from the Switch when there were so many issues with it.
You never want to be the first person to have it.
No,
not nowadays because they rush shit out.
I mean, what I'm kind of waiting for is maybe like when they do like those special themed versions, like if there's a Link version or
a Mario version,
because historically those sets always do really well on the back market.
On the back market.
I remember when the Wii, no, not the Wii, the GameCube first came out. They along those lines, they came out with that special Zelda version that came with
the gold one.
Yeah, it was like a special disc that had every game on one copy, and that sells pretty well on the secondary market if you could ever find it.
It does, absolutely. I mean, there's GameCubes. There's like a purple translucent one. Forget what that was called. But that GameCube itself just alone can sell for about $400-$500.
Is it an Anthrite or some shit? It's like some weird name.
There's a Panasonic one. It was like, it played. I think it played CDs, and it was like a multi-purpose console, but it also played GameCube games, and it didn't say GameCube on it at all. But that Panasonic set sells for like $600-$700. I've seen broken ones saying like, "Hey, this doesn't work anymore." Still sell for like $400.
What is that? The bootleg version?
No, it was. I mean, it kind of was I don't know how they got the license to do it. It must have been at the end of its life, and people were like, "Hey, can we play?" I don't know if they negotiated the rights to make it, but yeah, it's just a Panasonic GameCube system.
That's pretty interesting.
Well, I had Gamecast, man. Gamecast, no.
Gamecast.
I'm broke.
But any of those themed, like we've talked about it before, like anything themed, anything that's bundled. So I'm kind of waiting I haven't seen anything for the Switch, any special bundles.
I haven't either. I emulated, my buddy emulated the Switch. You can emulate it now, I guess. He played Breath of the Wild on it, dude. It was sick.
Jeez. Yeah, that's kind of like if they ever did like a Marvel vs. Capcom one, I'd be all over that just because that game is pretty popular.
Yeah.
If they did a Resident Evil one, they haven't had a good Resident Evil game in a while. So
the new Resident Evil is pretty good. I heard scary as hell. I heard. For PlayStation.
Totally I'm so behind. I need to get a PS4, but I know that there's a new one coming in about a year and a half. So.
Well, and I'm waiting on Red Dead, and I've heard shit reviews for Red Dead, man. Kind of disappointed.
Oh, really?
That first Red Dead was awful.
Well, I know Rockstar's had a lot of problems in the past years.
I heard there are going to be loot boxes and stuff, man. Like shitty loot boxes, I guess. And then I heard, what else did I hear? I heard that Days Gone is supposed to be really good. That's what I'm getting. My underrated game. So.
Well, I'm just waiting for Last of Us 2. I mean, everything
too.
I've seen of it is amazing. And I'm still waiting. Like my buddy works for Naughty Dog, and he told me he has a stack of Hughes Uncharted variants on his desk.
Oh man.
And so I'm waiting for him to come up for air so I could have drinks and get one of those. I keep that's specifically why I'm like, hey, how about those drinks?
Could you snag me one too? That's awesome, dude. That's good stuff, man.
I'm waiting, and it's killing me because I know he has it. I know it's just sitting there, but I can't get to it.
That
patience.
That Hughes comic that Walker found. the other day was pretty crazy. I'd never seen that before.
Yeah, and I've talked to Nate about like because I had the Hughes Red Sonia. It was like the number 3 variant RRP.
The red one, the all red one.
Yeah, yeah, and it's like impossible to find. So I remember I had 2, and there hadn't been one that hit the market in 3 years, or 2 years at the point I had it. And so we were chatting about it, and he wanted to buy one. I'm like, I want to sell it, but I have no idea what the market value is. I don't know if I'm charging you too much, too little. And they're in pretty good condition. So, I got one graded. It came back as a 9.8. So, but he just got into like, here's all the books I'm looking for. And that was one of his grails. And I was like, if anyone's going to find it, it's going to be Walker. And sure enough.
Well, like most of us, I'm a Hughes collector too. I try and pick up anything I can. And tell you what, that Sally Forth book is a tough book to find.
I had one at WonderCon, and I didn't buy it out of principle. The guy had it on his and it looked pretty clean. Like I probably could have pressed it into a 9.6, or could have had Sean or Trey press it to a 9.6. But he wanted, I think, $100 for it, and I was like, market on it is about 70 even for its current condition is like 70, 75. So I'm like, can I do 75? And he was like, nope, I can't do it. And I'm like, well, that's what market is. He's like, that's what it's going for on eBay. And of course he's like, well, then here's what I tell people who say that. Why don't you just go buy it on eBay? I'm like, because I'm here.
We say that though. I say that to people.
I have cash. I can give it to you, and I don't have to spend shipping, and you don't have to do seller's fees. So that is the benefit to both of us. But then I said, okay, look, I'll pay, $85, and even that was like going above, and he just refused. He wouldn't go below. And so that's where I found like the Dreamwalker in his dollar bin. I was like, yeah.
Oh, that's the best.
I got you, buddy.
Feeling. Fuck you, buddy. I'll just buy this one book.
Did you put another book on top of it and just said I grabbed 2?
I did.
My man.
But it was like what was it? The first Bloodshot. Was it ride number 3?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was in the dollar bin.
I was about to say, like, you're like Alf number 1. Yeah, I got these 2 books.
There's nothing better than that feeling when you got somebody who's just he's trying to screw you, and you're like, okay, we'll see what I can do.
It's like I get that, if I said, hey, I'll give you $50, but I wasn't unreasonable with $25 down. And if you said, and like I was willing to come up to like 80, 85, and he still just wouldn't do it. It's like you really wanted this book to sit on your shelf for another year just to make $15.
Especially if you're the only guy who's asking about it.
Right. So that really pissed me off.
So like Matt, you're gonna hate me, but so there's one dude in Indy who asked me about Black Boy Fly 1.
Oh really?
He offered me a good amount of money, and I turned him down. Can you believe that?
How much did he offer?
800.
800.
Yeah, I know. And I said, how about? And again, I don't know if he was real or not, because I said, can you split it at 850? Like I had it up for like 1,000 or whatever, just because I don't know. I was like, whatever.
Here's the thing with that book. So and I haven't talked about it much because I was waiting to find to buy a 9.8.
Yeah.
I still have I think 4 copies of that book, but there's only 100 of them.
Yeah.
Hebrew
got destroyed.
No, they were just a lot of them they shipped terrible. I would say half of them were probably sold at New York Comic Con, and then there was one other convention. And then they sold the rest through this toy store that actually commissioned it. Hebrew Brantley is like this up and coming Chicago artist. There's a company called MRC Media. They have their fingers in a lot of studios. Like they've co-fied a lot of different productions, and they bought the rights to Flyboy. So their plan, specifically, this was an article from early February, late January, I think it was early February, but they have plans to turn it into content, to animation, to film, to create a comic book run to do toys and figures, and they're blowing it up. When are we going to see that? I have no idea, but I had reached out to them because I actually know the guys at Scout really well. And I said, hey, this is a really small imprint. This is before Black Panther. I was like, you guys should actually take it, this 0 issue, and you know,
and run it, right?
Create a series for it, you know. And he's like, yeah, it's a really good idea. So he reached out to them and they didn't get back to them. So I reached out to Hebrews people again and I said, hey, like, Scout's really interested. And they're like, actually, we have something in the works. We're going to have to pass because we actually have some stuff going on. And it turned out to be that deal, that big MRC deal. So it's a fantastic book to hold. You know, that character is obviously big, and you know, it's really big in the art world, especially in Chicago. How has it really translated? I don't think it's spilled over into comics fully yet. I don't think really the art community really knows about that comic book.
And dude, I had a crazy number. I had $1,000 on it, dude. Like, just, I mean, I do $1,000 on it. I'm like, I don't even know, dude. I mean, there's only what, like 4, 5, 9, 8s maybe. I mean, or
there's 199.
Yeah, 199. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, there's only 100 issues, so it's if that character, if it ever does blow up, and I think it will, it's gonna be insane.
Yeah, I mean, it could be like Rick and Morty 1. You think it's gonna be that big, where it's gonna be like a $3,000 book?
No, I don't. Well, I mean, I think it could be big. I can't quantify it because I don't know exactly what their plans are. They're, you know, what they're going to do first. Are they just going to do toys? Will that move that book? No. Are they just going to do short form animation? Will that move that book? Maybe. You know, and does that core audience buy the collectibles? You know, I don't know. It's kind of I don't think they would be hunting that comic book,
and that's why I put 1,000 on it too, dude, because I didn't know. I mean, it's like you said, there's only 100, right? I mean, there's only 10. I mean, I didn't even know. I just threw 1,000 on it because I'm like, I don't know, dude. Am I underselling it? They had one sale of a 9.8. It was $450 on GPA. It's like
I probably would have taken that 900 and been pretty happy, but you're not. It's not like you're not gonna get that again, you know. Yeah, I think there's a lot of potential in that. I just don't know what exactly they're going to do with it. In a post Black Panther world, the value of that property went up tenfold.
Well, what they just announced? They just announced that Black Panther like broke or beat Titanic as like the 4th most profitable.
Yeah, it's almost
Titanic.
It's going to beat Avengers pretty soon as the most. The highest grossing Marvel movie. I mean, I would have never said that would have happened with that film. You know,
well, it's definitely a feel good story, that's for sure.
No, it's awesome. It was a really great movie. It hit every chord. All the characters, like Shuri is probably one of my favorite Marvel characters now, just because I want to see more of her. I think she's just fun.
And Boseman just killed it. I mean,
yeah,
he's. I don't think they could have found a better person to play that role.
No, and I remember I was watching Black Panther books for years, and I just never pulled the trigger because I'm like, yeah, you know, is this ever going to be a big character? Probably not. Yeah, but turns out it's pretty big.
Has there been a decent uptick on the first appearance? I mean, I haven't really been paying much attention, but over the last couple of months seen any rises?
I think they've been steady rises. I think it maybe dropped a little bit, but if you look at books that sold every day, there's like a Jungle Action that's selling. There's a Fantastic Four. First Black Panther selling. There's Black Panther 1 selling. And there's, you know, the one with the Campbell cover selling. The one surprise that I'm surprised didn't go crazy is the Campbell sketch. Like that should be a 10 grand book at this point, you know, with the success of Black Panther and Shuri and the rarity of that sketchbook.
Yeah, it's a great cover.
They just don't come up often.
No, they don't. I can see that book becoming one of the most valuable. I could see it surpassing the Del Auto Spidey at one point.
Uh-oh, don't let Trey hear you say that.
It's one of those books where, I'm sure the Del Auto is actually probably rare because I think back in it was a San Diego Comic-Con variant. And there had to be at least 500 of them, The question is, where are they? And I can guarantee you there's not 500 of the Del Auto Spideys.
Yeah. That's how many of the Black Panther the sketch covers are there?
I have to look it up. Forget. I think there's about 500. Marvel variant. Back in 2011, I think the magic number for most of those convent variants were about 500, and those were given away as well.
I'm sure some people just crumpled them up and threw them in their bag.
Absolutely.
Yeah, those are the books that you love finding. New books that meet that same set of perfect storm variables. Given away, very few made, decent characters, great covers by good artists. Yeah.
Yep. If my internet would work, I could actually look it up.
Still having problems.
Yeah, I tried switching and it wasn't going to work out because it was with AT&T and I thought Fios was put in, but it turns out it wasn't. So it's just going to be copper. So, which is I think 24 megabytes per second.
Are you far away from the central office?
No, we're in Los Angeles. They said it's 2 blocks over, but they're just sporadic with where they put it in. It's really weird. So, but then I called, we have Spectrum, and they're like, oh yeah, you're on a shared network. So, at 8 o'clock at night, you're pretty bogged down. I'm like,
great.
They're like, well, we could switch you over to this more privatized one, and it's an extra $10 a month. I'm like, fuck. I'm already paying way too much.
That sucks.
But I mean, it's fine. It's just
don't worry, Fios isn't all it's cracked up.
It's actually super fast when it's working. It's just
when it's working,
drops out.
They have these routers.
It's my same theory that I have with cell phones, our mobile or smart devices are so incredible, right? They do everything, but the cell service still sucks, and I don't understand why they don't devote any more, anything to just better service.
They're trying. They're really trying. I work in the space and defense industry, and one of the biggest things that we're seeing more and more in the satellite, field is the internet, the OneWeb type thing, where they're going to start deploying these new satellites to create a better cell service across, a grid of cell service, and that's what most of our businesses right now are, for those communication satellites for those cell services. So they're trying, and what's crazy is, just to get way off topic, is it's actually freaking a lot of people out because they're worried that it's going to be bombarding us with some different type of frequencies that they don't want us to be bombarded with. So
you're saying we're going to get superpowers?
Well, here's a perfect thing to say. One of them was called Skynet, until they realized.
Oh man!
Yeah.
Get the fuck out of here!
I am
no. Pull the plug.
Yeah.
Let's start
and
over.
And we're working on this thing. Going, are they crazy? Do they realize what they're setting themselves up to do? And
man.
they eventually changed the name, but 100%, it was called Skynet.
Yeah. Who's the fucking moron that?
Right.
Oh man.
The main computer, Hal. But the space computer will be Hal.
Yeah, the biggest thing you have to worry about isn't the Chinese space station falling on you. Trust me.
Did that fall finally?
Yeah, it fell over the Pacific, somewhere in the Pacific. So there's a really cool picture of it entering, the atmosphere where it's burning up, and it's a perfect outline of the space station, but on fire.
Jeez.
Gotta leave it to the Chinese.
Yeah, and they put that thing up there and sent a couple people up to it, and then they couldn't use it.
Nothing like made in China.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
They're trying.
Uh-oh, who's beeping?
I was hoping I was about to hear Fraser Crane for a second, but we're not so lucky tonight.
No. Paul decided he had to leave.
Family business, I assume.
Yeah, I don't know, dude.
Or a future Paul's problem.
Or he's packing for Baltimore already. I don't know. Yeah.
But you got new luggage, right? So
Yeah. Well, he just booked his flights, and I made him super nervous. I told him he couldn't check a bag. So.
Oh, how did last weekend go for you guys? It was last weekend, right?
Yeah, it was okay, man.
It was a grind.
Yeah. I mean, we all made
you do
some
as
money.
well the year before.
We murdered it the year before.
Yeah,
like everybody murdered it comic wise.
The crowd was a lot different.
They're moving it to September now for Memorial Day, right, guys?
Labor Day.
Wow.
Labor Day or whatever. Yeah, I don't know why, but so we are gonna go somewhere else. I'm thinking
That's kind of a busy con time too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're getting and the big thing too is they're getting hammered with C2E2 the next weekend, so that might be another reason why it's
that's what killed us.
Well, there were a lot of people even at WonderCon who are like, "Oh yeah, we're not going to go to WonderCon because we're going to go to C2E2."
Yeah. So we have that, and then so we're talking about Dayton or Lexington, or I think there's one more around the Midwest-ish kind of. So we'll see. I don't know yet. We had to figure it out, but I don't know. I guess there's a Michigan Comic Con. There's like Motor City, and they're making another one called Michigan Comic Con. So I don't know how that's gonna work, but
would you ever do a Wizard Con?
No.
Because I know sometimes that like lately they offer like free booth space, and
well, I don't
wonder that's
if they gave me a free booth, I'd go.
Yeah, I mean, if they make me sit up next to the pretzel guy, I mean that's a problem.
I mean, for a free booth, I don't care. They can put me next to the fucking shitter.
I could fly in for that, dude.
I mean, but the thing is, they're not going to give us a free booth.
Not at Philly Wizard World.
Nah, dude, it'll be like a probably $1,500 booth.
Oh, jeez. That's almost as bad as C2E2 Motor City and stuff like that.
Yeah,
It's like
major con with quotation marks.
Yeah.
Just a bunch of fucking neckbeards and fat Harleys.
Well, and the problem too is I think me and Scott were kind of I think Indianapolis is kind of getting to cosplay,
Yeah,
ton of cosplay, dude.
Cosplay and a lot of like kids.
Yeah.
And like it's funny because on the other side of the con, there's like this different atmosphere.
Yeah, we had
it feels like you're crossing over the railroad tracks to like the weird part
Oh,
of
dude,
town.
it's like there's like one main bathroom in the front that everybody goes to, but there's kind of like a fake, like a secret bathroom kind of in the back that it's not as bad, but it's still bad.
You just got to go through the
the other world.
Of the damned.
Yeah.
Oh, it's crazy, and there's like pop figures everywhere. There's fucking fake swords and
lightsabers and whatnot. Terrible stuff.
And all those mystery boxes, those seem to be popping up like crazy at every convention.
Yeah.
Everyone is doing mystery boxes now.
Here's my overstock I've been sitting on for a year and a half. I'll sell it to you for $20.
Well, so I went to Campbell's booth at WonderCon, and they have like a mystery box, and it has I think 8 variants in it. and they're like for $80. I think for $80, maybe it was like 6. For $80, you get 6 variants, and it could be from any of the various, from the regular, the more common ones to the rare ones. But they're like all these super hard to find ones are not in them.
I mean, like like Siege 3 Campbell variant, Deadpool variant.
Well, it's funny because here's the thing that a lot of people don't know, especially at the Campbell booth, and I recommend people to like ask. They always have a couple secret boxes underneath their table of his harder to find stuff from his personal collection, and stuff that's just common Campbell books, not the really expensive books, but common stuff that he signed and comes with this little COA. They never have them out, but if you ask for it, they'll usually bring them out. And a lot of there was one that I was looking at. It was a Lady Death. I forget what it was. It was like the emerald one. Mm-hmm. But they had one that was hand jeweled and also printed with Campbell's initials on it. And there were only 3 of those, or 2 of those, 2 or 3. And they wanted basically like, I think $150 for it. And so I was debating it, but I decided not to, just because I kind of learned a lesson with the Hughes Red Sonja. When you have that rare of a book, it's really, really tough to
your market
to quantify it. Yeah. If you list it, people don't want to like spend a crazy amount because it's never gone for that crazy amount. So there's something to be said for having like a book like Losh. That's like, the guys are talking about it on Impressible. It's coming up less and less now, but the fact that it still comes up continues to set that price. It's worth $1,000. When a book disappears for 2 years, or if you have a book that's that rare, that's as low as just a handful of issues, like 1 or 2 or 3, it's almost worthless when you get to that point, because you don't know, if you're putting $150 in, is it worth $150? Can you get $150? I don't know,
I noticed a Campbell book that I recently got rid of, and I'm not thinking twice about getting rid of it because it was one of the books I traded to get the Walking Dead run. But it's that Elephant Men 18, not the sketch variant, but the color one.
Yeah,
and I think there's less of those, at least from what I can tell. I've seen less of those for sale than the sketch variant.
What was on the cover of that?
It's just a chick in like a shirt, and she's kind of like, I believe she's on
that's like the see-through one, right? You can there's
the
one
rings.
They use that cover for 2 other books, and it's not as sheer, but whatever that 18 I think is sheer.
Yeah, whatever it is, the color one, which usually the case is the color version is the normal one, and the sketch, or the black and white is the more rare version. But I haven't, there's only one on eBay, and it's a signature series one, but I haven't been able to find any others, and I'm almost thinking like, man, maybe I should have figured out a different book to offer.
Well, with those books, I think that's actually, I think you moving it was a smart choice, because let's say Elephant Men stops and never comes back. Are people going to be digging for that book 20 years, 30 years later? Probably not. If it's that rare, it's going to just disappear into the air, unless it's a book that's kind of like a folklore where people talk about it. It's not like some of those Whitman variants. What was that Superman Whitman variant with the comet on it?
DC Presents or something like that.
Like that book that people talk about that book. It's like an urban legend. People don't think it exists. So when it pops up, people will pay stupid amounts because it's, it's like, oh my God, you never see this book. Just because it's talked about. But when people don't talk about them, it's like that Campbell Jewel one. Are people going to be talking about it? Like, oh my God, I want this Lady Death jewel encrusted limited to 2 copy variant? No. So that's why I kind of decided to not get it.
Yeah.
but I think selling that Elfman is good. You know, if you can get like, did you have any emotional attachment to it?
No, I picked it up to flip, so
Yeah.
it was even better. So, but it's just like, I don't know. I'm one of those people that sometimes when I flip books, I'm like, gosh, did I make the right decision?
Don't look back.
Yeah, no, it's painful. Like there's so many books. Like, you know, when I had to move a bunch of books that I didn't want to move, I think what was it, 2 summers ago? It sucked because I knew that I didn't want to let it go, but I was like, well, I think it's at its height. So I think if I move it now, I'll be able to get it back. I mean, in all those books, so there's probably 7 of them that skyrocketed in value. Ooh. I mean, I could tell you tons of stories. Like, I had the Campbell Lizard one. I had a 9.8.
Oh man!
And it sat at $275 for 6 months.
I would have bought that at heartbeat.
And like that, right? It just sat and it sat and it sat, and then finally someone said, "Oh, I'll give you $275 for it," and wow. You know,
they laughed all over the bank on that one.
Yeah, it was like, and I was like, you know, okay, I think, you know, that's what the market says. I think it's worth more, but you know, that's a painful one. I mean, there's several other ones that I hated selling.
So did you pick that up out the gates, or was it something that you searched for?
I had this honey hole, and it's still, I haven't gone back to it because I think I picked it pretty dry. But they
look, he left because he doesn't want to talk about his honey hole. What a dick!
Internet problems.
Yeah, internet problems in quotation marks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I picked this place clean. Yeah, I bet you did.
Yeah, sorry guys, I gotta go.
So basically what happened is, he that honey hole he picked, he had like crazy variants. I mean, hard to find stuff and really everything and really high grade, you know. And Matt's actually a student of the game, so I mean, and he's a good dude about it. So I mean, but like you said, how many like you said, we all talked about that Campbell. You know, that's probably one of Campbell's best covers, and it's like you said, people with land variants who sold them too early. There's a whole bunch of lists.
I sold a land for $100.
Yeah, the Edge of Spider-Verse land for $100, and you thought you were hot shit, didn't you? At $100,
dude. I was like, yeah, dude, I'll take $100 for this bullshit character. Boy, I was wrong on that one.
So I mean, we even did that in the beginning when we started our little company. We had a little honey hole, and we had a lot of the top 100 variants, and I mean,
we had like at least 20 or 30 of them.
And we turned and burned them. I mean,
we made money, but yeah, whatever. You can't look back.
But the thing too is, like, we just started our company, and you know, we didn't have the luxury of affording to sit on books for, you know. What do you think?
Like I said, I mean, if you can make money off of selling the book, then sell it.
Oh yeah, dude. I mean, because you can move on and you can flip it into something else and something else and something else. I mean,
yeah, and I like I said, you know, what I traded it for, what it was part of a trade with, it was something I had been trying to get for quite a while. So I don't feel too bad about it, but man, overthinking it probably.
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely overthink it.
I'm one of those guys that is notorious for picking up movie spec and then forgetting to put it up fast enough.
I did that with Outcast.
I do that all the time.
I did that with Outcast, and this guy got mad at me. We had Outcast 1 at 9.8, and it was terrible. And look at Matt DeVoe comes back
and
after
there, and that's why it's doing what it does.
At the perfect timing.
You guys there?
Yeah, we're here.
We were just making fun of you because you're talking about your honey hole, and then you just dropped. It was
it disappeared. Yeah. Oh, son of a bitch! No, it was an awesome haul. It was basically where did I end? Because I was talking for a while.
Because you're talking about you had the Campbell variant, the lizard variant for $275, and that's what you kind of, and you go, I had this honey hole. And then you didn't talk about what you picked up.
I was like, wow, they must be really into it. They're really quiet. No, the honey hole was like this store where instead of putting their variants up front, they would put it in the back in a glass case, and you had to request it to go through it. and they would only keep about 50 books in there at one time. You guys still there?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. And so then when they would, then they would just move them to storage, quote. And for years I was like, oh, hey, do you have this book? And they were like, oh, probably in storage. And so I kind of foo-fooed it because it sounded far away. So eventually I asked her, like, well, hey, where's your storage? They're like, oh, it's just in the back here. I'm like, okay, can I talk to your manager? I'm like, I'm looking for these 3 books. And at the time it was like the Winter Soldier variant. I think it was the Delauto.
The Delauto variant.
Yeah. I asked for that, and there was like the Black Panther Delauto for what was the
Original Sin.
Yeah, Original Sin. And then I asked I think there was a couple other ones. I asked for like Lost and something, and they're like, oh yeah, we have like 4 of these, but and I was like, at the time they were all like $300 books. And she was like, oh, you're probably not going to want it. It's $40. I'm like, I'll be right there. And so
let me see how much money I have.
I went in and I bought these like really expensive books, and I was like, hey, I'm looking for, if I was like, hey, you found these. I'm also looking for these. She's like, why don't you just write me a list and I'll go through it. So I gave her a list and she went through it. It was like basically all the most expensive variants, and she found like 20 of them.
Wow.
And then I got to the point that, I gave her like a Target gift card just for thanking her for spending her time and digging. And she was like, this is the first time anyone's ever given me like a gift, at the store. And so then that got me access to everything in their back. And so she was like, come on a quiet day, like a Thursday. And she just brought box after box after box out. And it was magical. It was pretty much like every single expensive variant that you could ever imagine, except for like the convention variants and some of those really, really rare ones like the Mary Jane Venom or the Spider-Man Delauto. But anything that was 1 in 50 from 2008 to 2014 was in there. A lot of the Venom variants. It was magical.
Yeah, I think it's funny though. She's like, yeah, you won't like the price, but these rare variants are like $20. I mean,
it was great. And then she was like, there was like a lot of those art germ books, like a lot of the Flash art germ ones. I grabbed she had like 6 of them, and I grabbed them all. And she was like, well, only get 3. I was like, okay, I'll do that. She's like, well, you could come back for them if they're still there. So I need to go back and grab some of those books I left behind. But I mean, I think I got pretty much all the major expensive ones.
Sure.
But now it's kind of like it's just a lot, like a little place to go. And when I remember a book that popped up, I'll just hit her up every now and then and say, hey, is it still there? She'll go digging for it.
I found a Hawk 3. Is it 340? The one with Deadpool, the Deadpool variant though.
Which one?
Was it Hawk 340 or Hawk 7? The Deadpool. Huh. It's with Hawk and Wolverine. And Claws has Deadpool. I got that back in like 2012 or 2013 or whatever for like $20 in a bin. Jeez. It was like $100 book, $120 book back in the day. Crazy.
I mean, there were lots of books. The problem is like I made a lot of money on them, but at the same time, I wish I would have held on to them for sure. Like I had, I bought a Land Edge of Spider-Verse off the shelf for $20, and I graded it a 9.8, and then I was like, oh my god, this in 9.8 it's now $450, so I sold it. I was like, it's never going to go higher than that. And then, it jumped up to like $800, and then it dipped back down, and now it's just insane.
What's it at now? What's the going price on that?
I want to say it's like $2,000, $2,300, $2,300 for a 9.8. I know 9.4s are moving at like $800-900. So I have a 9.4 CGC and a 9.8 CBCS for it. So I'm just waiting for 2 more weeks, 3 more weeks, if you know what I'm saying.
Wink,
Hint.
wink.
Wink, wink.
Well, that brings up another topic, is the whole CBCS CGC thing. And I was talking with a buddy, and it seems like that whole CBCS, we were talking about it a couple shows back, or maybe last show, where the whole CBCS thing with it being, well, at least you got a better graded book. And I was talking to a couple people that say they notice it seems like, they're starting to the grading is starting to be a little lackadaisical. I don't know if you guys have been noticing that, or
who's gotten their books back? I mean, they got to be rushing.
Exactly right. Maybe that's why they're trying to rush through them, or why it's happening, because they're rushing through them.
Yeah.
I can't imagine a worse job than being a grader for one of those companies. I couldn't sit there, and I love comics and I love looking at rare books, but can you imagine going through 1,000 Amazing Spider-Man 795s and be like 9.8, 9.6, 9.8? I would lose my mind doing that job.
I'll give you about an hour. After an hour, I'd lose it.
And then imagine the pressure that's on you, because you're like, your slowness, your speed is costing us business, and the company, it would suck.
You'd think that they'd have some type of, at least some part of the process a little automated.
There's got to be a point where a lot of us, we've been doing this a while. We know condition fairly well. We miss a lot of those really small details, like if it has some minute crease on the back. If we don't look at it in the right light. But generally, we can tell what a 9.8, 9.6 is between anything between lower than a 9.4. There should be someone there that can at least go through and like, these are definite 9.8s, or
quick sort.
Yeah, like a quick sort. Like, here's what we think they are. We need a finer eye on these books. I don't know. I guess that wouldn't work, but because then you missed out on 9.9s and 10s and
yeah,
so
but I mean, if you see a color break, you're like, okay, that's not a 9.8. I mean,
right.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
right. You need like someone that knows, because I think a lot of us, if there was if you had, like, say Sean's probably one of the best of us at grading. If you had someone like there grading moderns, he would probably be pretty spot on, but then when it gets down to, those like, 5 to 8 ranges, you probably need someone who knows what those steps are that, okay, it has this, it goes down 1 point. I don't even know how those factor in, but
it's probably subjective a little bit with those, like you're saying, those lesser graded books. Imagine, well, and on top of it, they got to know the nuances of certain books, like with the Thanos 13 and the color rub thing, if there's certain books that,
right. Or those foil variants where a lot of them get 9.8s and they're like, obviously they look awful in the case.
See, like the thumbprint on it.
Oh.
Well, one that always comes up is the thicker books and the popped corners, where it's just like right. Saga #1, Monstrous. Those thicker books, all their corners on the binding are kind of popped.
Yeah, it's because they don't use square binding.
Yeah.
Interesting. So yeah, I don't know. I know I stopped using CBCS, just because I noticed that I have like a lot of the rare books that I did get graded, I use CBCS, and that was during the whole CGC debacle, the case debacle, where they were going through some awful times. So I switched over to CBCS just to give them a try. They had a better reputation. They looked like they were kind of primed to at least take some lead, or at least catch up.
We thought.
Their turnaround time was better.
The turnaround time was fantastic. I mean, I got my books back quickly, but then when I gave them, they're like, oh, hey, by the way, this is like, they had my books for like 2 weeks. We're going to change the label to the infamous Rivet label. And so all my books got that Rivet label. And so I'm like, I would rather not grade my books with this label. They're like, well, we can send it back. I'm like, can I just get like a credit? Can I just send them in, to get the new labels? And they're like, no. I'm like, can you give me a credit of some sort? They're like, no. So they kind of lost me. And then I swear they damaged 2 of my books.
That's come up quite a bit that I've talked to a lot of people where they've sent books to them that have been damaged. As a matter of fact, one guy who's one of my buddies sent in a book to them that 90% he thinks they lost. And it was back when they had a decent turnaround time, and he waited almost a year. Jeez. And he was like, I bet you they lost my book, and it must have popped up somewhere. But a lot of damaged books I'm hearing from both companies. I've had that with CGC lately, where I've had a lot of books sent in on pre-screen for 9.8s, and some of them come back, and I'm like, there's no way I would have sent that book in thinking it was a 9.8, with all the damage it's got.
Yeah. I mean, maybe they need to go to, because they're obviously speeding through books way too fast, both companies. And they're having, some people who are a little less careful. Maybe they're having a bad day, a tired day, or they
just might not appreciate
they're just not paying attention. Might not appreciate it. But what if they did like a lottery system? Like, hey, this month we have two that we can take 10,000 books, and it's only available for 10,000 people, just to meet their numbers. I don't know. There's got to be some way that they can fix their speed, because I know they can't just hire, it's hard to just hire graders.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. How do you train to be a grader, right?
Right. You have to infuse like 20 years worth of like comic knowledge into someone. I think
that's where you're getting your damage, is you're getting people new that are just, don't really know what they're doing.
Well, you hand a comic to anyone who, let's say they know something about comics. Like if I handed a comic to my wife, or even to like a friend, they would handle it a lot different than me. Like, what's your instinct? Thumb right in the middle.
Well, it's like, and the thing too is like, it's like a car, right? If you get a brand new car and you say, "Hey, I'll let you drive my car," they don't care because it's not their car. They're gonna just floor the shit out of it. You know what I'm saying? It goes back to that old adage.
Well, I think there's also with like comics, so like, with the car, you're like, okay, I don't want to scratch this car up. But with a book, they're like, well, this is a comic book. I'm gonna read it like a book. And so the way you handle it is a lot. It like instantly creates damage. How you flip through it, or where you put your thumb. Like I remember when I was younger, when I went to a comic book shop, I was buying a book from someone. He's like, I could tell you're a comic collector because you cradled the book in your palm, instead, and then went through it instead of like grabbing it by the spine. So that's got to be a challenge, and I can't imagine that there's new graders popping up, left and right.
No.
If they were smart, they would hit, our circle, like I said, with like, Sean and Trey. Those guys are great graders, and a lot of us are.
Mm-hmm.
It would be easier to train us, than it would be, fellow comic book speculators and flippers who know condition.
And they also need to create like satellite offices. I know just having one place where you send books, that's a nightmare too.
And same day grading is such a blessing. It's like, and I know it can hit people harder, but I just know that sometimes you get those gift grades, but that instant gratification of getting them in 3 days is just such an amazing feeling that sometimes it doesn't matter if you get like a 9.6. The fact that you could just get it within 3 days is awesome. So I wish they would start doing it at most cons. But I assume they need to lug some special machine around to slab them.
Lug the slab machine.
I mean, someone was talking about did CGC recently rechange their case? They were talking about that on Pressable a couple weeks ago, right? It's now thinner. Did you see that, Dina, when you got your books back?
I haven't got them back because John Brown has them, but
okay.
I did see. We've been submitting a crap ton, so I've seen the thicker cases and I've seen thinner cases. So,
because I tried opening up one of those thicker cases. It was the hardest thing I've ever had to open.
You're a fucking bitch, man.
Oh my god!
I had fucking pieces of plastic everywhere.
And I was like, I'm sure I'm going to damage. And it was my Edge of Spider-Verse 9.4. So I bought it as a 9.2, cracked it, and it was in an older CGC case. And so that was a piece of cake. And then I sent it in, got it. It came back as a 9.4. I was like, yeah, I think it's better. So I cracked it out again, sent it to, but trying to crack it out of that New York case was
a bitch, man. You got to like really like crack the shit out of like the entire like perimeter.
And even then, it was like it didn't come off as like one piece. It would splinter off into like these razor sharp shards.
That's what I mean. Like I had plastic everywhere in my basement.
I said to myself, I'm never doing this again with a CGC case because it was lucky that book survived. The fact that it came back as a 9.4. Ugh. But like a CBCS case. People talk about like there's no way you can open it up in like 5 to 10 seconds, but absolutely that case just pops right off.
Oh yeah, you just pop those little tabs off.
Those little tabs and done.
Boom boom.
I
don't like what they did to combat the old swap the label. Did you see what they did?
Oh, what did they do? I can't remember.
They heat sealed the entire side of the label to the plastic. So like if you rip out the label, it tears.
Oh, interesting. No, I didn't know that.
But it looks like shit.
I mean, that's the problem. And that was my, I was always willing to try CBCS out once just because I know that a lot of people were big supporters of it. And Steve Borak seems like an awesome dude. Like he seems like a cool guy. Like he knows what he's talking about and he's trying really hard to make this company a success. But man, they still don't look as good as they do in a CGC case.
No, I mean, as hard as those CGC cases are to crack, they do look fucking gorgeous.
And I actually like the weight of it.
Yeah.
We had so many. DeVoe, somebody asked us if we were at a CGC booth. A couple people did.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's dumb.
Yeah, I mean, there was some people that didn't really know.
You should have said, "Sure, we'll take your books."
Yeah.
Here's a receipt.
Yeah.
And it's like, you put down some fake name.
Do we think we can cut it off, boys? I think we got a good one.
Yeah, it was. Time flew by, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's late. Jeez.
All right, boys. 2 weeks, I guess. I don't know when that is, but 23rd. It looks like.
I want a good Paul's problem, Paul.
Yeah, we're gonna figure out why Paul left. That'll be a problem.
Yeah.
Did he have any problems last weekend, or was he with you guys?
No,
he wasn't there.
He wasn't there.
He can only go to Baltimore.
Yeah.
So he'd rather go to the place where he needs his monkey fist or ball, whatever.
Well, he can't pack it this year because I'm not letting him have a check bag. So. No, I'm being serious. You guys are thinking I'm fucking with you, but
it's like no check bag for him.
Yeah, I told her. He goes, "Well, I guess I'll get my wife to pack." I'm like, "Yeah, dude. I sent him like 3 articles a day about minimalist packing." So
you should like during Baltimore, you should slowly like sneak decoy wallets into like his pockets.
just you know what I should do? Just throughout the trip, just randomly take his clothes and like hide them somewhere. So he doesn't think he packs as much as he
literally packed like 3 times as much clothing as you needed.
Yeah.
For the weekend.
So. Well, you have one day, for the first day you might want to shower, and then the second day, you might need to go to the pool. Third day, there accidents might happen.
Yeah.
I mean, it is Paul, so I mean anything is possible.
Yeah, but it sounds like fun. I want to go to Baltimore.
Yeah, it's a good time.
I'm with you. That's one show that I really want to save up and try and get out there.
It's got to be awful for the competition because when you're bringing in your fellow people, the fellow speculators that know just as much as you do, and are all hunting for the same books, it's got to be terribly competitive.
It's terrible for the guys who. But it's good for the dealers. Like, it's funny though because the dealers pick up on it. They're like last year, I think Sean was buying like Spawns.
Yeah,
like, somebody's buying every Spawn book imaginable. It was Sean.
Someone keeps asking about Spawn books, and wasn't Brian asking about Motu books?
Yeah,
it was. That's funny.
Times. Well, all right, boys. 2 weeks. So thanks everybody for coming and listening to us ramble for like 3 hours, but. We'll talk to everybody next week or 2 weeks.
Peace.
Thanks for listening.